You tell me what you doing to me. 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 You know that my love don't come for free. And you
That's
say
cool. I'm gonna watch this video regardless.
you know that my love don't come for free.
Where's the wub wub? That does that?
Don't come for free. You tell me.
Nothing about that. All right. Got my, you know what I'm saying? It's time. We're going to continue for what we were doing earlier today. Watching, reacting, and responding to Duritsu-kun's Downfall of One Piece video. I think it's been, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? Crip. I have to be crip. It's crip season, you know what I mean? So, all right. Let's get it. Let's waste no time because this shit long. So, let me minimize. I might do another workout, bro. I need another one. That wasn't enough for me. But we here, CBL, yeah. I'm gonna upload my response to Dr. Bonehead on YouTube tomorrow for people to see because them new niggas that came in my comments talking about whatever were just brain dead. So let's get it. Return to Sabaody with my Zelda sounds. Yes. Blessu of
In
Zawairdo.
spite of the long-winded speech that I gave, the post-time skip actually starts off pretty good. I know that's a bit,
Yeah, look at you. Look
I
at
would
you.
say
Already.
anticlimactic.
Fold in. No, I'm kidding.
but that's exactly what you would expect from an arc that only has 5 chapters. It's pretty hard to mess up, especially because there's no larger plot to it. There's no bigger
It's just
stakes.
reunion.
The main function of the return to Sabaody is for vibes, a good time, and to reintroduce the main cast.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Oda had taken a 5-week break. After like the last chapter of pre-time skip, he took a 5-week break, almost to kind of make us feel the passage of time in real life. I was in pain. I was suffering for a whole month plus.
And with there being a
Sabaody
2-year
bullshit
gap in the
facts.
last time that the Straw Hats saw each other, Oda was presented with an opportunity that many authors love, which is changing character designs. The process of changing character designs allows you to create a separation between timelines
Yo,
and a
that
story,
Frankie design
and give the impression
was the biggest point of contention for so long. People were not messing with Frankie's design. And I was like, nah. Now he actually a cyborg. I'm with this.
that things have changed, that people are maturing
I love
alongside
Frankie's new design.
with the characters. It also allows you to naturally develop your characters to make them stand out more and to give the audience something to appreciate when they go back to look at the past. Compared to everything else that is presented within the Return to Sabaody, the change in character designs is probably the most contentious topic that you'd find discussion.
Ha!
Character designs are clearly, for the most part, a preference and aesthetic appeal. Although I do think that there are positives and negatives that you could definitively point out, which has been to the benefit and detriment of many series outside of One Piece. Personally, I prefer most of the pre-time skip designs of the Straw Hats, with the exception of Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp. I think the choice of having Luffy brandish the scar that he received from Akainu out in the open for everyone to see is a great visual reminder for the audience and the Straw Hats themselves, if they were to ever care,
Okay.
about how things changed and why they had the time off that they did. Plus, as we all know,
I'm interested to know why he doesn't really like the Zoro one, because Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy to me are largely unchanged. My nigga put his hair over the other side of his eye. He got a little baby beard. You know what I'm saying? Got a little baby beard. That was really it. Like Zoro lost a eye and slicked his hair back. Like it wasn't. I don't know.
scars are cool.
Maybe you'll explain it.
Zoro also looks more the part of a veteran swordsman, and
Okay,
Usopp,
okay.
as we already discussed, has a severe physical change which makes you think differently of
Oh,
him.
did you say Zoro? Oh, what did I hear? Oh, so it's Sanji then. What's wrong with Sanji?
If I wanted to be specific about new designs that I didn't vibe with, then I'd say that Nami, Chopper, and Frankie are at the top of that list. Frankie, well, I can't say I was ever the biggest Frankie fan, but I think he definitely looked cooler and a bit more serious with his pre-time skip
Definitely
design.
look cooler.
Oda
but
went
he's
heavy
not
with
robotic
the cyborg
enough.
enhancements,
Yes.
which resulted in Frankie looking like an enormous hulking action figure.
Let's go.
Fine, but I think most people would probably consider it a downgrade.
It's
At
true.
the
It's true. I like one of the few people who liked
end
it.
of the day, though, designs are designs. They don't inherently change how good
You
the
could just
writing
hate
of
Sanji for
something
no
is.
reason. I'm used to it.
This
Fair
isn't
enough.
said to underplay the importance of character designs, though, because
Sanji's
it's one of
fair.
the most important aspects of a visual medium like One Piece. A series lives and dies based on how attractive or unattractive their characters are. Have you ever seen pictures of a series and decided without even knowing anything about the story that you don't want to check it out
Yeah.
because some of the
It's
characters
Itadaki
just
with
look
Baki.
mean?
That shit ugly as
Or
fuck.
perhaps you've
Shit
had the
grotesque,
opposite
nigga.
happen.
I'm not watching it.
Maybe you are looking around and you see the promotion of a female character who is 100% waifu material. That is a psychological reaction that creates a bias.
Nah, you niggas is
And you
horny,
can see
man.
this replicated in the real world. There is an
Hey, chill on lookism. Lookism kind of raw.
absolutely insane bias towards beautiful
Haha,
people
Piggy.
and against
The
ugly.
rap is good, but we're not seeing
Beautiful
your face.
people can get away with a lot more in society
character.
just because they look
But y'all know
cute.
about
That's a
lookism.
fact.
Y'all know nothing
So
about
character
that.
design is important, and there's more
Is it
to
really?
it than just
Okay.
that. Character design is a good way to represent certain aspects of what your character and
Fuck
your
Griffith,
story
man. Get your bitch
entails.
ass on my screen.
But when it comes to One Piece, I do think there is a case to be made, due to what happens later in the post-time skip, that some of the redesigns show issues with how Oda perceives some of his characters, specifically Chopper and Nami. Nami's new design is over-sexualized for fan service to a fault, and doesn't come off in a good way just because
Yes. Fan service. Let's go.
of a fashion excuse given in Punk Hazard. Appearances don't mean that you should automatically judge a character, but they certainly help form your impression of them. As I said in Nami's
Let them
Dream,
titties
she
hang,
comes off as
baby.
more of a
Yes,
sex symbol
sir.
in the post-time skip.
Yes, sir.
Chopper seems to have turned into
Yeah.
a parody of himself.
That's what I like.
While also looking quite a few years younger, I might add. He has lost the balance he once had.
Those
between
fake Straw
being
Hat shit
a
was so
reindeer
funny, bro.
that could walk and talk to more of like a cute product placement for little kids. And once again, this wouldn't be something to note if there weren't blatant issues with these characters and their actual writing. If there weren't issues, then this would simply be seen as a change in preference for Oda, for the better or worse.
Shout out to Chopper.
Outside of these character designs, the only real issues that I could even attempt to point out with Saba Odi have less to do with the Straw Hats and more to do with how Rayleigh is still on Saba Odi without being hunted by officials from the world government. Since, as we all know, his residence was confirmed to be there back in the original Saba Odi. And a pirate-hating fleet admiral might be more inclined than Sengoku to capture one of the most famous people to have ever lived. That still has an active bounty. But this is an incredibly minor criticism because I don't think the answer to this question is something that greatly affects the story in any way here. Rayleigh serves a negligible role in this 5-chapter arc, and the positives with Rayleigh far outweigh the consequences of what this question's answer
Fair
may
enough.
be. One of the best scenes of the arc is Rayleigh seeing Luffy go off on his new adventure, remembering his time with Roger, and then succumbing to tears in his pride at Luffy, which makes him be determined to live more in order to see the future. Outside of this, we get some welcomed interaction between the Straw Hats. We see Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji overcome the Pacifica, which had previously given them trouble.
Yeah.
We get the fake Straw Hat
Hey,
pirates
my-
and an
my
abundance
goats.
of jokes.
Fake
Luffy
Zoro.
uses Conqueror's hockey willingly, and we see Luffy's fame from the Summer War. Oda saves Luffy meeting up with half of the crew until the end, which results in the excitement and joy when he calls out to them. Everything ends off with a good speech from Luffy to the Straw
Okay,
Hats.
drip
This is
cosplaying
exactly
Sanji.
what the Doctor ordered. Short
Chill.
and sweet. It's a wholesome
I
and
hate Braga
successful
for
way
making me
to
know
set
what his
sail
name
and
is.
begin the
It's
descent
Young
to the
Drip,
depths
man.
of the sea.
Shout out to
Target
Dripu.
destination, Fishman Island, the first complete arc of the post-time skip. An arc that has a reputation, even within the casual fan base, for being known as one of the weaker arcs in the story.
I don't know. Actually, no, that's probably true. Weaker arc is true. My biggest issue with Fishman Island is Hody. I don't think Hody presents. I'm starting to. You know what? Let's hear him talk about it. Hody Jones. Ah, fuck that guy. Hey, Young Drip, man. Shout out to Dripa. Oh shoot! What's this nigga's name again? Shit out! Oh shit! Oh, damn. I remember his name. Someone tell me this guy's name. With the Mark fruit. Vander Decken. There we go. I was not going to get that at all. I was not going to get that. And that Sanji gag was atrocious. That hurt my feelings. I was mad at that.
The expedition down into the murky waters offshore the Sabaody archipelago feels like old school One Piece, and is very reminiscent of the Straw Hats' ascent to Skypiea, as well as their initial entry into the Grand Line.
Body.
There are a few details that also parallel this. Skypiea was 10k meters in the air, whereas Fishman Island is 10k meters underwater.
Whoa, yeah.
We have the Straw Hats getting in trouble and having
Nipple lights, let's go!
environment that is the One Piece world. Oda includes some fun time with the currents, and once again, the Straw Hats meet a giant animal that they end up befriending, similar to Laboon. During the beginning part of the descent, it is a silent voyage, with the Straw Hats gazing in awe of the environment and just goofing around. Similar to Sabaody, the dive down to Fishman Island is mostly devoid of errors when you are reading it for the first time. Until the Straw Hats reach the island itself, Oda is mostly exploring and just vibing. And as a result, so are we the audience. But that's not the only thing he does. Oda uses the silent voyage as an opportunity for a little bit of discussion and incorporates Franky as the vehicle to approach the Kuma reveal. It is learned that Duval, and mainly Kuma, are responsible for protecting the Sunny over the time skip.
Give Duval his credit. Run him his check. Flying fit. Toby off this right.
He goes on to say that he asked Rayleigh about the confrontation he had with Kuma.
What's up,
after
Babel?
getting
Welcome back,
to the
sir.
Sunny.
Hunter Austin in
Rayleigh
the back makes me
informed
sick
Franky
to my
that
stomach.
Kuma
Turn it
revealed
off.
himself to be a leading member of the Revolutionary Army who wished to help the Straw Hats escape 2 years ago. Storytime comes to an end when the Straw Hats learn that Kuma agreed to have his mind erased by Vegapunk shortly after he saved the Straw Hats. There is the foreboding message that if they were to ever encounter Kuma again, he would be an enemy. Zoro mentions how screwed up that situation is for Kuma and questions why he would go so far just for the Straw Hats. Usopp makes the connection that since he is in the Revolutionaries, that the only reason that would have happened is because of Luffy's real dad, Dragon. This is a great reveal for the audience. Let's examine this scene and place it into context with what the rest of the post-time skip has to offer, because for as much as current events can affect later ones, information in the future can affect the quality of the past as well.
It's true.
And I think that might be the case here.
It's true. I think One Piece has a really good habit a lot of the times of strengthening an earlier chapter with new information, and sometimes weakening an earlier chapter with new information. But conversely, a lot of times something is recontextualized. The easiest example to use just off rip is that when you're doing a read of One Piece, it's going to be very hard to see Kanjuro in the same light because you know he's a traitor. So watching him with Kinemon and running up and drawing Ryunosuke and Robin's crying is going to hit you in a different way because you know he's not one of them.
Franky recontextualizes all of the Straw Hats' past experiences. Them meeting Kuma back on the bark, Zoro's own experiences, sacrificing himself for Luffy, and most importantly,
Zoro
the reason the Straw Hats are still alive.
Sharingan Zoro!
Like Kizaru on that fateful day. Kuma literally sacrificed his life for their sake. Among other things, this revelation gives Luffy a whole new set of things that he could think about. The dad that he knows nothing about has made numerous efforts in order to help him out on his journey. Garp told him in Water 7 that Dragon freed him from Smoker and saw him off at Logtown, likely hinting at the fact that Dragon was keeping an eye on his progress. Luffy also knows that Ivankov has connections to Dragon, and Luffy likes Ivankov. Akainu does as well if Luffy was paying attention and reading into his dialogue, but maybe he doesn't catch that, which is fine. And now we have this Kuma business. All of these events hint at the idea that despite his absence from Luffy's life, there is a reason to this, and Dragon still cares in some way, shape, and form about Luffy. So there's a mystery behind why this is the case. It's very, very interesting stuff. However, Luffy has virtually no response to Kuma's story and couldn't care less. In my opinion, this is an aspect of Luffy's character that is a pro and a con. Normally, Luffy isn't interested in talking about anything at any point in time outside of casual conversation, which is why it's often the case
Interesting.
that in a
What you have to
talk
say
with
about this.
Luffy, the other person he's talking to is normally required to hard carry the conversation to make up for Luffy's lack of personality when it comes to this and lack of care. This plays into Luffy's childlike mentality though, so it's either going to be something that you like or dislike because it's done very intentionally from Oda. He's commented on this numerous times, and it's one of the reasons why Luffy doesn't have internal dialogue like most characters do. As far as the
He's a
story
man
goes,
of action.
however, Luffy's reaction to this Kuma news is in character, and it's consistent with what the rest of the story has been like from the beginning, so there's no writing issue here.
Okay.
Curiously though, Robin was listening the entire time and seems to be holding information back, which does bring up a different conversation related to this topic. As we know, Robin spent the time skip with the revolutionaries, and she obviously knows more than the Straw Hat.
I don't know if he's gonna say this, and I don't know if this is too low. Is the volume good? My bad. I don't know if it's too low. I can turn it up a little bit. What I'm just gonna say is if he's like expecting Luffy to be like, so how's my dad and what is he? Luffy was absolutely the wrong person to think that was gonna come from.
And perhaps
We'll see
even
what
the
he says.
audience
Okay,
does
good? Cool.
concerning Kuma. Dragon was interested in meeting her, so it's almost assured that Robin has met, interacted with, and knows Dragon to some degree, especially considering her positive relationship with Sabo and Koala. In the heat of the moment, you might assume that Robin's silence here would be the beginning of a future plot point or foreshadowing to some kind of event. Luffy's disinterest in Dragon could have been something that relates to what Robin has experienced with Dragon and is looking out for. The readers are heading into the time skip with the expectation that what and where
Whose mom? Luffy don't care about his mom, bro.
the Straw Hats were will have a relevant impact on what they do in this new environment. In retrospect, I think this can be assessed and determined to be a missed opportunity as it relates to Robin and most characters, if we're being honest. When you head into Dressrosa and come to realize that Sabo is alive, knows Robin, and has interacted with her before, it's questionable as to why Oda even had Robin join the revolutionaries to begin with, because it has next to no effect on the story in the progression of its events, its characters, and especially in relation to Luffy. I'm not sure why this is the case. As an idea, it was rather brilliant for Oda to separate the Straw Hats the way that he did, because for a story that paints its main characters to be as close as they are, tearing them apart from one another is a fantastic plot device to use in order to make them even closer than they were before. I wonder how the Straw Hats would interact if they were to actually have discussions about the things they've done or seen, which brings us to the next topic. Shortly after this Kuma reveal,
I think his point about Robin is something that I understand. It is a very weird thing because when you really think about it, her being with the Revolutionary Army hasn't really meant or amounted to anything. I guess if you want to say she learned the palm from Hack, I don't know, like if you want to go that far, the Fishman Karate, but I don't like doing this because I think you should be able to absolutely judge what is already present, but I think he's saving that for something significant later down the road. But I think that's a very fair frustration to have, honestly.
the Straw Hats deal with Caribou's sneak attack on their ship.
Just have a character
and
that's
there's
great
some
because of hard
conversation
work
about
and
the currents
effort
of
of
the
not
ocean,
family. Thank you,
which
but
includes
Eastern
some foreshadowing for
storytelling, man.
Vanderdecken.
You know how it is
But
sometimes.
the unbelievable happens. Luffy and Zoro are standing next to each other on the Sunny when Luffy, of all people, asks Zoro, "So Zoro, where did the bear guy send you?" And Zoro replies with, "Oh, you're not gonna believe this." Luffy instigated a character interaction with his right-hand man, and it's a conversation of immense interest and potential. As a fan, this is everything you could ever want. How would Zoro convey what happened to Luffy? Obviously, he would avoid the sacrifice of his pride, but the sheer fact that Oda showed the idea of the crew interacting and being interested in what happened during the 2 years...
This is something that I miss a lot. Just seeing them just talking, being together, just the general camaraderie of the crew. Because I remember when it happened a little bit in Wano, when they were just eating some noodles, I was just like, oh my god, look, they're together. It was so nice.
Is amazing. So what's the result of this? What's the answer to the question? Just when Zoro is about to speak to Luffy, the entire scene is taken over by a gag of the Straw Hats not understanding sea currents, leaving the conversation to have been off-screen or interrupted. It's not really clear what happened. This is a moment that I look back on and regret, because if you know the future of the post-time skip, then you realize that this
I would
wasn't
argue
a
this
moment
this
that Oda
moment
used
resonated
to
with Dritz.
tease the audience.
Like, I don't care about that, honestly. Fair enough, Dritz. I know you're a Mihawk guy, so that conversation could have given you a little bit of insight to Zoro and Mihawk. So I could see why he'd care so much about something like that. I didn't give a damn.
There was no plan in the future to dive into anything into any detail whatsoever. This was just a gag for the sake of a gag that sacrificed a great character interaction.
You're talking, oh my god.
This is something
That's
that
what
I
we're
would
reduced
say
to.
is
It's
a
like,
concerning
like
and
Lamb, we've
pervasive
come to the
issue.
point where we're just like,
The Straw
finally,
Hats are a
something. We'll
group
just
of
take
friends
something.
that are
Let's
meant to
take
be
it.
as close to a
Like,
family as
it
you
reminds me of Onigashima. I'm like, oh my god, finally some naval warfare. Oh shoot, he going away so we can use a long range cannon. It wasn't much. It didn't amount to much, but I was like, I'll take it. So it's come to that. I thought
can get without being blood related. They are a unit, a package. Nakama.
Damn.
To fans, it feels like they've been together forever and always will be. And if that's the case, then I think there's an inherent issue with the lack of character interaction between them after 3D2Y. It doesn't make sense for quote-unquote friends to not ask or care about what they've done or been involved with, or for Oda to not show that, especially after being separated by Kuma in the way that they were, and especially after having Luffy seemingly be interested in the prospect. Now, I know I don't need to remind you, but I will anyway. But the
This
crew
point's
has
not
spent
moving me
more time
personally.
away from each other
This is not
than they
moving me.
have with each other. But in the pre-time skip, character interactions were something
But
that
I
were
hear-
much
I get his
more
point, though.
frequent, serious and casual alike. The pre-time skip revolved around the character arcs of the people
Oda,
joining the crew.
a lot
But
of
during the post-time
anime
skip,
fillers.
meaningful character interactions
Oda's
don't really
off-screen's
seem
the
to be
best in
something
the
that
business.
Oda cares about.
He's
or
the best
focuses on
off-screener of all
beyond
time.
Anything that's
To run
surface
Oda his
level.
check. No one
Oda seems
got the
to favor
off-screen game like
supplementing
him.
character interactions with gags so that he can show the same joke a million times over. Gags aren't a bad thing either, so I don't want to make it seem like the incorporation or the attempt at humor is what I'm pointing at. Gags can help bring characters to life. However, when there is an overwhelming disparity between gags and real conversation or plot lines, it creates a narrative dissonance. In situations where you think characters will care about something because the story has set it up that way, you will instead get nothing. The main characters feel like they are sitting in the background while the story is simply happening in front of them, and that is a horrible feeling to give the audience. And at many times, that's what it feels like with the Straw Hats. And like I said before, this is the most important part of the story from a structural standpoint, and for the characters to be less engaged during this section is a complete contradiction.
To be honest,
and it's
one of
for
them
these
Oda
reasons
was
why
really
the
starting to trip
off-screening
down
of this
to get
potential
the
interaction
major
between Zoro and
straws
Luffy
back. I agree with that.
is extremely
I think the
bittersweet because it's
Gaga,
indicative of the
Rekit,
future.
and Miss,
I think
Miss,
Oda
they can be
should
great,
take
but
some
as a
time to
Sanji
think
fan,
about what
damn
his
it, misses
priorities
too.
are in scenes like this in the long run of the series. What is better, Luffy and Zoro talking to each other, or a sea gag? Let's continue. The rest of the journey down to Fishman Island goes rather smoothly and is composed of an abundance of gags, and a small display of power from the crew. We see Luffy use hardening for the first time, we see Sanji use skywalk underwater, Robin protects the ship alongside Chopper, everyone meets Surme and Watatsume, and the presence of Vanderdecken is confirmed. Vanderdecken is actually introduced in an intriguing manner. Oda gives his vessel a ghost ship design and
Flying
uses the
Dutchman.
legendary seafaring name of the Flying Dutchman, which gives off the idea that it could lead to something interesting. Fishman Island really begins shortly after this, though, when the Straw Hats
Why
get
you keep
visual
doing that on his
confirmation
face?
of the place they're going
I
to,
can't- I-
and
that's
are
the first-
confronted
that's
by
the first time
Hamon
he's done
and
that.
the new Fisherman Pirates. Hamon gives a little speech and tells the Straw Hats that their only choices are to either join Hody or to die. During this little speech, it is revealed that Hamon has the same tattoo that Arlong did, which makes Nami uncomfortable, reasonably so. The Straw Hats use their last bit of air in a coup de burst, entering Fishman Island in a dangerous manner, and thus become separated from each other by the strong currents. Generally speaking, the reason why authors split groups of people up is so that they can incorporate those characters into plot lines that otherwise wouldn't be possible had they been stuck together, or to give alone time so that X, Y, or Z can happen. When the Straw Hats are separated upon entering Fishman Island, they are isolated into the following groups. Group 1, Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, and Chopper. Group 2, Brook. Group 3, Zoro. And Group 4, Nami.
That's
Frankie,
not a
and
group.
Robin.
That's a solo.
I'm going to go
That
through
probably
in chronological
why
order the sequence of events that occurs
feels as Straw
post-separation,
Hat
but as
and
I do,
Momo and Kinemon,
I
they're
want you to
shown
keep the
eating
following
together.
in mind.
Straw Hats have been getting
What is
separated
the end
damn near the whole
result of
time
this
skip. Shit's
separation?
kind of annoying.
What does it accomplish? Alright?
It's pretty.
Alright.
It's extremely
After the separation,
formulaic.
Luffy
I'm just
wakes
used
up
to
in
it, I think.
Kami's apartment with Sanji, Usopp, and Chopper after being rescued by the mermaids who were nearby. There is a sequence of what I find to be solid, normal talk between Kami and the Straw Hats. We learn a bit about the economics and apartment setup in which Kami is living in, as well as the mention of Papagoo. The Straw Hats are treated to the scenery of the island as they take a turtle taxi and view Fishman Island's unique beauty.
It's not the nosebleed gag. That was whatever. It's just that the gag legitimately turned into him being on death's door, which was weird. I thought him getting the blood transfusion from Chopper was just an extension of the joke, like, oh shit, whatever the hell. And then after it's like, okay, we put the blood in him just because they're being funny. At one point at one point I'm like, wait, he's actually in danger? That was just super weird, right? That's weird. Well, this is a weird choice.
Eventually, they make their way to the Mermaid Cove, where Oda delivers more gags about Sanji loving women and how the Mermaid Cove
the whole like, oh, I'm horny, my nose bleeds.
In the character dream portion,
not funny, bro.
I talked about the lack of character agency when it comes to Sanji and the All Blue. And if you are a person that is invested in Sanji, when he proclaims to have found his All Blue, you might look back at this scene a bit sideways, because while this is a joke that isn't supposed to be serious, you could make the same statement towards Sanji's actual dream. It's a joke and isn't serious. If there was any place to start Sanji's journey for the All Blue in the post-time skip, then Fishman Island would have been the perfect place. Sanji is surrounded by a culture of people who have been around for hundreds of years, who are sea people that live in the sea. I don't know, man. Maybe they might be a good source of information. Maybe Sanji could see things here that indicate its existence, like how Zeph said. There was a lot of potential to incorporate a subplot here. As a matter of fact, when Sanji makes his joke about the All Blue here at the Cove, that joke could have been used to propel a side plot. Example: Sanji screams about this being his All Blue, a mermaid, or a new character in the Cove, or perhaps just someone nearby. Here Sanji says this, and Oda can go in a different direction. It confuses me as to how Oda didn't even think to include Sanji in anything meaningful in this arc. I would definitely consider this a missed opportunity. There are people who are frustrated with Sanji's nosebleed gag, and not without reason. It starts in Sabaody and persists until he sees Shirahoshi. So it's not as if it's an isolated incident that only happens once. But the real source of irritation likely comes from the fact that Sanji almost dies from his nosebleeds. It turns from a gag to a serious consequence. Sanji almost dying within the story at the first island. If you are reading Fishman Island, it is impossible to care about Sanji literally almost dying because of the manner in which this has happened. When you combine this with the fact that there is no real substance with Sanji in the entire arc, it's understandable why people become frustrated. Those silly situations are only as entertaining as what you get out of them, right? Almost killing Sanji to introduce the blood transfer plotline, which ends up being solved by the Okamas, which is yet another trolling of Sanji, isn't the best way to get people to like what happened, which brings us back to the story at hand. After Sanji faints from blood loss, Luffy engages Hamon and Hyozo in a short bout, and Kami steals the royal eel, thus making an escape from the scene, leaving the princess baffled and regretting that they couldn't give Luffy Jinbei's message. The Straw Hats find some reprieve in Madame Charlie's shop, and Chopper deduces that Luffy was poisoned. This is when Usopp and Chopper find out that Luffy developed an immunity towards poison due to Magellan. I'm sure this will be relevant in the future. It might be worth pointing out that this could have also been seen as an opportunity for Oda when it comes to incorporating the events of Marineford into more serious interactions and subplots within the Straw Hats. When Luffy candidly mentions that he almost died from being poisoned by Magellan, it could have reminded the Straw Hats of what Luffy had to go through while they were gone, and not there to be a supporting cast, especially for someone like Chopper. Something that could have been made all the more apparent by the end of this arc when Luffy seems to suffer PTSD from Akainu and grabbing his scar. If any of the Straw Hats were paying attention to Luffy, which there's no reason that they shouldn't be because they were all right there, that was another opportunity that presented itself as a means of getting the crew to interact with each other. When you see your captain having PTSD, I don't know, maybe you care, maybe not, who knows. Snap back to reality, we have Madame Charlie. A well-designed shark mermaid with an interesting ability to see into the future. An ability which causes drama as she catches a vision of Luffy destroying Fishman Island. Luffy and the gang continue to explore as they meet Papagoo and Brook, leading them to join up with Nami, who was
big
shocked.
money Papagoo. Hold on, was he like a
Neptune
fashion
makes
designer or
a
some
surprise
shit?
Appearance and invites the Straw Hats to come dine with him at Ryugu Palace. Leading up to this point in time, which has only been a handful of chapters...
Sorry, I cannot take this panel seriously. He is not a threat. He's so unserious.
Mind you, Hody has been introduced and subsequently hyped up 3 times. Once at the beginning with Hamond, once again when Hamond reports that they found the Straw Hats and Hody orders them to be brought to him, and then once again at the end of 611. Oda hypes up Hody's strength by having him take drugs and deal with Crab Hand Gyro. Impressive. In the chapter following this, we learn a few things. Caribou has escaped and begins capturing mermaids, and while flying towards Ryugu Palace, Neptune reveals that Zoro is already at the castle and is drinking. Luffy asks Nami where everyone else went because Nami was paired up with Frankie and Robin, and Nami reveals the following. Frankie said that he was going to look for a relative of Tom's. Then Robin was talking about some important history, so we split up. I'm not sure I follow this logic, though, because since everyone got split up after being threatened before entering the island, maybe you'd think they tried to get back together, especially because there's nothing else that is actually pressing them in terms of plot development, but whatever. A more natural way of splitting these characters up probably would have been to show a sequence
Molly
with these
Popper,
characters
he'd be
being
popping
confronted
them
by other
mollies.
things. This
Papa
does come
Molly,
off
I'm
as a bit
sweating.
forced.
Woo!
Nami and Usopp talk to Neptune about sunlight underneath the water, which is actually a pretty good conversation. Usopp writes down on a note to remind himself to talk to Frankie about the Eve tree because it reminds him of the Adam tree. I'm sure this will be important later on, and Usopp would definitely talk to Frankie about this.
You gonna do the? I knew it. I caught you this time, bitch. Gotcha. What did I tell you about doing that face, man? Stop doing it. I got you this time.
The Straw Hats arrive at the palace, and then, as we know, Luffy runs off chasing the scent of food and finds Shirahoshi. Outside of the Fisher Tiger flashback and the epilogue of the arc, including the blood transfusion with Jinbei, this is what I would say is the next best section. Shirahoshi engages in a nice discussion with Luffy, and I find her to be an endearing character when paired with Luffy. Shirahoshi embodies the archetype.
These mistakes that he's calling out a very single story. Wait, are in a very single. No story is perfect. He's just calling everything out. They could look like Florida people can be really cringy and dangerous. Japanese, yeah. I do think that at this point there's a lot of self-insertion. I'm not going to assume he's doing this because I hate people assume I'm doing this, but there's a lot of self-insertion, almost like this is what he believes should happen or wanted to happen. And I'm just not some of this stuff is not moving me personally, but I still understand where he's coming from because I speak to Dritz a lot, so I understand how he views the narrative. Like, he looks at it a certain way, so I get why his mind is going to where it's going because I speak to him, right? Whereas I never look. I think a disconnect that I have with the community, again, just to bring up some old stuff, is because I was so not a part of it for so long. At least this type or part of the One Piece community. I don't know if there's other parts, other places. So I look at this story so much differently than most people that I speak to. So, I really don't have any issues with this arc, aside from Hody being a piece of shit waste of time, though I do think some of that is very intentional, but I just don't think it makes for a very interesting antagonist.
The type of the childlike princess trapped in the castle, knowing little of the outside world, while desperately wanting to see more. What Shirahoshi really wants is freedom, and conceptually it's great to balance that with someone like Luffy, who is supposed to value freedom above all else. Luffy is a strange and confusing being to her, and is completely foreign.
Too. That's true.
But despite Luffy's rudeness, it's something that Shirahoshi secretly yearns for, because she doesn't get to talk to basically anybody, which is why whenever the guards come in, she doesn't inform the guards of Luffy being there and wants to keep talking to him. When Shirahoshi starts asking Luffy if he's ever seen the sun or trees, I think that's when everything comes together and you fully see how Luffy and Shirahoshi make for a...
I really think Shirahoshi had the potential to be such an incredible character, and I think I was personally let down with Reverie and her role in it, really and truly. Like, I'll speak on that later, but Shirahoshi was one of my favorite characters for so long based off of her potential in Reverie, but I'll touch on that when we get there.
Good.
But you can obviously already assume it's related to Queen Orihime and her dreams and whatnot.
Conversation and theory. Shirahoshi's lack of freedom prompts Luffy into wanting to give her what she wants. During this discussion, we get a transition over to Vanderdecken for the first time, where he proclaims his love for Shirahoshi and then throws an axe. Try to keep Vanderdecken's motives in mind, because they get very, very confusing as the arc progresses. The axe is stopped by Luffy, and Luffy manages to convince Shirahoshi to go on a walk with him after promising to protect her. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats get blamed for all the hubbub going on in town with Caribou, and Neptune is about to take action when Zoro comes out of nowhere to stop him, revealing that he freed himself.
I actually like that she did that, and I'll explain why later.
The scene transitions to show that Vanderdecken and Holy Jones have now teamed up.
That moment there is a moment of her understanding a bigger picture, of not creating a certain type of cycle of hatred, which I actually think is a very powerful character moment for her. I never understood why people looked at it that way. I think you're inserting your own personal... Like, I could never do that. Someone did that to my mother, they're dying. Guns are getting drawn, okay? Like, things are happening. Fights are going to break out, war. But... while it's a weird because I kind of don't respect it, but there's people who are able to do something like that and have that level of forgiveness. I do think takes a level of strength that most human beings simply do not have.
And Oda,
I said human beings, well, fish people too, I guess. I don't know.
Once again,
am I racist for that? Discrimination for fishmen people? I am racist against them. They all ugly except for a couple.
Again, hypes up their goal of destroying the Royals. Oh,
fuck with the Minks though. Hey, listen. Oh, ready for a
At the same time this is happening, Nami is talking to the group, and the Minister of the Left mocks the fact that Nami has no understanding of how the log poses and magnetic forces work in the New World. I do not know why Oda incorporated this in the manner that he did.
Where's Kaifa?
Nami studied weather for 2 years and without...
Honestly, Glab, I thought for some reason I thought you were about to start talking. I thought he was passing you the baton, like you were the Yami to his Yuki. I really thought you were about to come talk. I swear to God.
But doesn't even know the basic seafaring knowledge, like level 1 stuff for the New World. But she understood how the underwater currents work. It's kind of odd. Maybe Nami was reading the wrong books. I don't know. Similarly to Sanji, it's not the fact that something like this happened, which has caused me to point out, because characters learning can be good. It's the lack of future things that make this seem weird by comparison, because navigation and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is something that is heavily questionable
her not telling her people he did that
and will be a topic of discussion at the end of the arc. Oda obviously intended for this to be a moment of learning, but it's kind of weird coming right out of the time skip. When you go back to the pre-time skip, as the Straw Hats were originally entering the Grand Line, they were completely ignorant.
I have to use my Gator.
They had no idea. They just thought they were all they had was a map, and that was it. Which is why the talk with Crocus was important. Contrast this with 2 years of studying only to fail at the most basic knowledge. It's a bit jarring. I could understand it if there was some super advanced stuff, but the Minister of the Left is literally making fun of Nami for basic stuff.
So Virgo?
In chapter 616, Frankie meets the younger brother of Tom, and his name is Den. Frankie and Den have a conversation where Den informs Frankie that fishmen, by their very nature, look extremely different from one another. He goes on to say that humans have a limited way of judging people by their appearance. This is an interesting point and a nice lesson because
we're just watching this Drit's Greatness Part 2. I did one earlier today, but I'm enjoying the video. I don't agree with a lot of these saying, but I'm enjoying it.
Is that it doesn't really do much at all, well done, and doesn't make use of Den's
good editing.
Not a whole lot is done with Den's character or his relation to Tom. It's only used as commentary for how fishmen look different. This side plot is useful in the sense that it recoats the Sunny, but by the end of the arc, the Straw Hats are heroes and they're partying. So recoding the ship isn't a priority and could have easily been done off-screen and explained. The placement of this coding as a justification is a bit negligible. Den, being Tom's brother, accomplishes
next to nothing. You got more parts.
His speech to Frankie is more for the
I can't wait for his whole cake.
Frankie's newly gained perspective on the look of fishmen doesn't do much, which, once again, I think there was greater potential for Oda to incorporate this in a more meaningful manner, especially because of Frankie's, his history with Tom, but also because Frankie is a cyborg. He's not fully human, he's part human, part machine.
Okay.
Have a seat. Get comfy. Let's talk. At this point in time at Fishman Island, all of the Straw Hats have had their separations come full circle.
Like
And if you remember,
Frankie
I
look,
asked you to keep the fall-
Frankie look like y'all niggas so ugly. You look so unmoved by all that, nigga, Fred, Cutty Flam racist.
following in mind as I went over the events in chronological order. What was the end result of the separation, and what did it accomplish? Let's review what the results were. Luffy, Chopper, Usopp, and Sanji wake up and ride around with Kami. Sanji has a nosebleed, Luffy encounters Hammond, and Sanji gets a blood transfusion from the Okamas. Brook is separated, wakes
Okama
up,
way,
and
baby.
presumably goes straight to the Mermaid Bar,
You see that
hangs
nigga?
out
You were
with
kind of,
Kapaku,
you know what I'm saying?
and then joins back up with the main group. Nami separates from Robin and Frankie off screen right after being separated from the crew, and her first action and train of thought is to go shopping. Even though at the entrance of the island, she was the person getting uncomfortable because of the Arlong tattoo.
Maybe she was
Alright.
coping. Wait, hold
I guess
on.
that-
People shop to cope. Hold on. Women do this a lot. They be like, I'm stressed. I need to buy some shit. Get me a Gucci bag. Hold on. I just don't think you understand the mind. I'm joking.
Gucci bag just took precedent. Luffy's group finds her and she rejoins.
That just
Zoro
gave me
is
an idea for
separated,
something, actually.
wakes up, I'm presuming started walking around, got invited by the guards to the Royal Palace, started drinking, and then was imprisoned once the Straw Hats got bad rep. The new group of Luffy, Usopp, Brook, and Nami head
My
to the
cam is
palace.
what?
Luffy gets
God
separated.
damn it.
Zoro
Don't do this right now, man. It was cooperating. Bitch ass camera. I'll kill you. Hold on. I'm gonna
joins
keep
the
playing
group
that.
after escaping prison. Frankie is separated, walks to the ship graveyard, meets Den, who recoats the ship, and waits there until people come to him in the Sea Forest. Chopper and Sanji stay back, fight some fodder, and wait until Luffy comes riding by with Shirahoshi later on, which ends up curing Sanji's gag. Robin is separated and goes to search for a poneglyph that she suspects is on the island. As I
If
mentioned
it freezes
before,
again, just tell
the
me.
reason why authors split groups of people up is so that they can incorporate those characters into plot lines that otherwise wouldn't be possible, or to create character interactions. By and large, the events that we got from the separation achieved neither of those things, and the things that we did get were of questionable value and importance. Now, it's not uncommon for stories in general to waste opportunities like this because separations can sometimes be only important to one or two characters and not the whole group.
Wow.
But here in Fishman Island, we can say that it did more to lengthen the arc than to accomplish anything for any of the characters. If Oda continues to walk down this road of doing nothing with his subplots, it will be an issue. And this is exactly what I'm going to point out as we continue to go further into the time skip, and that's what I have to say about that right now. The next step is for Hody to invade Ryugu Palace, where he comes face to face with the Straw Hats. Hody makes a point of saying that the Straw Hats are his sworn enemies, which, again, at this point, Nami notices that he has an Arlong pirate tattoo. Hody gives a speech proclaiming that Arlong was his hero, something that seems to shock and greatly disturb Nami. You'll notice that this has happened a few times in the arc already with Nami, and the reason I'm going to keep hammering it home is because of what the end result of this detail is.
Does she never,
just
like,
keep in mind
properly,
that
like,
the arc
react
is
to it, I guess?
purposely building up a tension with Nami, the Fishmen, and Arlong's influence based on
Is this
her
before or
facial
after her
reactions,
conversation with
even
Jinbei,
if it's
though?
at odds with her initial movement after landing on the
curiosity.
island in her quest for a bag. Additionally,
the
Oda
bag
is
out,
building
man.
up Hody's desire for strength and how he supposedly hates the Straw Hats. Hody Jones begins to flood
Wow.
the castle and has a run-in with Zoro.
Hold on.
Oda incorporates more Vanderdecken memes with his obsession with Shirahoshi and confronts her on a piece of flying coral, which Luffy is able to sense from a mile away. Wow, his new observation hockey is pretty good, huh? Vanderdecken goes on and on about his love for Shirahoshi. It's a fairly long, boring speech, and it just results in a gag answer from Shirahoshi saying he's not her type. We'll touch on that more later. Vanderdecken is then momentarily defeated by Luffy. Nami escapes with Kami from the palace with the intention of wanting to meet Jinbei because she has an idea as to why he told Luffy to not fight Hody and wants to piece things together for herself. Once again, this is building up Nami's involvement in the arc. She's the one taking action, she's the one noticing things. Zoro handedly defeats Hody while underwater, but ultimately gets captured with Brook and Usopp. The rest of the Straw Hats converge in the Sea Forest and meet Jinbei, at which point Jinbei reveals that he was the person who freed Arlong, causing all of the events which lead to Kokiyashi Village's state that we found at the beginning of the story. Spicy. And thus marks the beginning of the first flashback of the post-time.
I like this flashback.
Fisher Tiger and Otohime are standout characters with compelling interactions. And this flashback is easily the best part of the arc and the thing that people come back for time and time again. Fisher Tiger's quiet but passionate charisma is shown through his own struggles of fighting the hatred for humans that he bottles deep within himself. Something that becomes beautifully incorporated with Koala's subplot.
Yay!
A subplot which shows the fishermen that humans can suffer just as much as them, tying in together with Otohime's own plight about how the society of fishermen need to advance and give humans a chance to understand them. It's executed very well because it focuses on these two parties and how they affect one another. One Piece is the type of series where normally every time Oda has nameless fodder talk, it actively takes away from most scenes he's trying to incorporate them into, but that is not the case with this flashback. They only serve to make it better. Otohime's efforts in talking to the citizens, chasing them down, and ultimately being hurt when the parents send their children to take the ballots away, create sympathy with the readers while being an entertaining and realistic drama.
Looks like Drift is kind of doing the like death by 1,000 paper cuts, like the type of thing. I don't know if you ever heard of that, whatever. Where it's like, 1 or 2 paper cuts won't, kill you. You have 100,000 paper cuts, you'll bleed out and die. So I think he's trying to just show like an accumulation of many little things. Though I think a lot of these things aren't necessarily problems. A couple of them are nitpicks, and a couple of them have to do with how he sees the story. And I may not view it the same way as him, so to me it's not an issue. But I still understand where he's coming from.
May break down after this sequence of events. She wants to hide her pain and suffering and cry alone in frustration because she doesn't want to do it in front of her children, a theme that is often relayed in the arc. Don't do it in front of the children. And it makes it even better because her children are her source of relief after long days, like most parents. Otohime's drunken speech connects her character to the populace and gives more depth to her dreams. The makings of a solid story with emotional weight are all present. Maybe Oda could have spared a few of the transitional scenes to make it flow better, but at the end of the day it worked fabulously. The narrative was a simple one to tell. There are less subplots to tackle, which make for easier and smarter storytelling. There are some nice twists, such as the arrival of the Celestial Dragon and the incorporation of Shirahoshi's abilities as Poseidon. And Oda ties in past characters like Arlong and shows a bit more of things that Kizaru did in the past before he became an admiral. These things are enjoyable to see as a fan. The only big criticisms that I have when it comes to the Fisher Tiger flashback have nothing to do with Fisher Tiger or Otohime.
Fuck them niggas! Don't put that shit in me! Fuck them niggas!
And jeez, man. Vanderdecken, upon reconsideration, might be one of the worst villains in the story. When I was going back over Fishman Island, I was trying to rationalize in my head why Oda even created this character, and the only answer I could come to was not a good one. In chapter 625, near the end of the flashback, Shirahoshi saves Otohime when she is about to be held hostage by celestial dragons, calling the Sea Kings, which promptly scare everyone around her. Upon seeing this, Vanderdecken states the following. There is a legend. The legend tells that long ago, an incredible power lay hidden below the waves. A mermaid princess with the ability to command even the Sea Kings. It was in pursuit of this legend that the very first Vanderdecken set sail for the depths. My ancestor, I finally found it. The treasure that you sought. It is only my clan who know the full truth of this legend. I know it.
He's a groomer? Oh! Arrest him. He probably already did. Arrest him. Oh. Locked up, don't let him out, no. Don't let him out.
When isolated from the rest of the story has potential. The Vanderdecken lineage sailed to the bottom of the sea long ago in search of Poseidon, an ancient weapon, but were unable to locate it. Since that point in time, the Vanderdecken clan has been searching for it. It is established that the current Vanderdecken's goal is to fulfill the desires of his ancestors and that very few people are aware of what Poseidon is. Sounds good, right? Well, hold on, let me continue. Here is more of Vanderdecken's quotes. First, I must make the princess my bride, but Shirahoshi is still a kid. That's a problem.
I blame Virgo.
Tamate Bako, and it can cause anybody to age? Could it say, turn a teensy little brat into a fully grown, sexy lady? This is it. Problem solved. With that box, I can marry Princess Shirahoshi. Once I'm Shirahoshi's husband, it will finally be mine. The dream that my clan has sought after for generations. Treasure. This is confusing,
Toru
inappropriate,
energy.
and lame, to say the least.
They both
The
stink.
Vanderdeckens first sailed down into the sea in
Vandecker is
search for a mermaid
comedic-
princess that could control the
comedic,
Sea
inept,
Kings for the purpose of
scary,
getting
and
some
being the
gold
worst
and treasure.
Kind of simp.
I don't
think
even
it's
know how
better.
these ideas are supposed to connect
Really?
to one
Better
another
than
to make
Hody?
any sense out of it. If the goal was to get treasure,
Van
wouldn't the
der Deck is
Vanderdeckens
like
have sailed
super
to Fishman
forgettable to
Island in
me.
the
I
search
couldn't
of,
remember
I
his
don't
name.
know, treasure instead of Poseidon? If Vanderdecken wanted into the royal treasury, which seems to be a priority, shouldn't his main focus be
Creepy
getting into
creeps.
Ryugu Palace and overtake it for the
I
treasure?
feel like
I could
even
understand
Oda knew
wanting
that
to maybe
Hody is trash
marry
because
into
he
the
actually
royalty
ended
for a
his
chance of
character
getting
after
into
the arc, unlike
treasury.
most of the other.
But there are multiple ways of doing that. You don't have to marry
Really?
Shirahoshi. And speaking of which, the only notable treasure that we know of is the Tamate Bako, which Vanderdecken wanted to use because he believed that it can make Shirahoshi older so that he can marry her
Did it
to
actually
get
freeze,
to
man?
treasure, which is not the Tamate Bako
Tired.
and just regular treasure.
Let me be frozen, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty dumb, right? And what part of this has anything to do with the idea that Vanderdecken has to marry Shirahoshi? Or the fact that she was Poseidon, outside of Oda's desire to incorporate what I would assume he thinks is a funny gag, but really isn't? Oda
See
still
my
goes with
lips
the
moving.
idea that Vanderdecken likes Shirahoshi, and as a matter of fact, Vanderdecken's quote-unquote goal is never relevant, and he actively works against his own interests, despite the fact that there is nothing here to suggest that he feels genuine about Shirahoshi.
It's kind of funny. Like, I literally don't remember anything that nigga wanted to do except marry her. Like, I don't remember any of this. And I read One Piece all the time. I've reread One Piece at least 16 times in my life. That's just funny to me. Like, he is so forgettable to me.
Oda uses the "you're not my type" meme after we get out of the flashback, so we're back in present day. And in a fit of rage, Vanderdecken decides that he'll kill Shirahoshi because she doesn't love him. And then he throws the Noah at her with the intent of destroying the island. What?
He's
What was the
heartbroken.
purpose of teasing the Vanderdecken
He's a
name
beta!
in correlation to Poseidon if
Beta!
this was the end result? None of it even mattered. Nothing changed. The only thing that I can think of is that the sole purpose of Vanderdecken was to have a character in the arc that had the ability to throw the Noah so that Oda could meet his quota of having an arc that has a time limit before you stop the big bad. And in this case, to artificially raise the stakes, Vanderdecken is a plot device, more so than anything else. He's not a real character.
Man, I watched too many
Shirahoshi
fun
was trapped in a
videos,
tower for
fun
10
dunking
years
on
and couldn't do
creepy
anything that she
reactionary
wanted to do because
objectifying, but I think
Vanderdecken Devil
yeah, I
Fruit
think
made
he-
it
I think it
dangerous
was
to do otherwise. And that never comes
purposeful.
full circle because there's nothing other than a gag going on between Shirahoshi and Vanderdecken. It seems like a complete waste. What was the purpose of doing all of this? Vanderdecken's plan sucks. All of this nonsensical writing could have been easily fixed by either Oda or his editors because Vanderdecken fucking sucks and is a huge detriment to this arc. Oda spends so much
How
time
long have I
between
been
Vanderdecken
back?
and Hody that could have been incorporated elsewhere if there was never going to be meaning here.
Who the hell?
Carrying on though, the flashback
I've been
ends
going
the
for
way
at
that we all
least
remember it, and things
40
return
minutes.
to real time with Jinbei
Zodiac.
explaining that he had always intended to bring Arlong to justice, but wasn't able to find them because he had paid off officials to keep his location secret. Oda will continue to add on to scenes like these as the post-time skip continues. After the story of Otohime is told by Jinbei, Sanji has one of his lowest moments in the entire story.
No. I think the biggest misconception about Dritz is that he's just a One Piece hater in general. What people fail to understand is the reason why he's so hard on his criticisms of One Piece is because of how much he loved it and all the emotions it made him feel and all the things he thought were brilliant at one point. And then he doesn't like it. Basically, it's slow death from the post-time skip is what's hurting him so much, which prompted him to make this video. He's actually low-key on One Piece stan. He just wants it to be good. I think people are missing that point.
Before anything can be said by the person who the story most
Thank you,
affects,
Penguin.
Nami, Sanji, the kindest man in the world, butts in and tells Jinbei to kill himself. And that while it wouldn't
It's for
redeem
Nami,
him, it
it's
at
for
least
Nami.
make Nami feel a bit better because, that
He's
definitely make
simping.
her feel better,
Beta!
man.
It's okay.
A supreme
That scene makes
showing of
sense.
sensitivity and respect towards the man that Luffy has a connection with and who saved his
So like
life at
Naiwa
Marineford.
Tower.
Nami then tells Sanji to stop,
Precisely.
but Sanji is just sort of sitting there, still wanting to go off on Jinbei. I'm not sure what Oda really wanted in terms of how this comes off for Sanji.
He hasn't seen real pussy and ass and breast in 2 years. Come on, bro. I'm like, yo, I get it. It's fine. I'm gonna let this pass. It's not a big deal to me.
On one hand, you might say that the intent was for Sanji to come off as being protective and caring. But if that were the case, then the way that Oda went about it results in the opposite being true. Because after Nami talks to Jinbei about how she's happy now with her friends, Sanji is just there in the background hovering around trying to soak up and grab praise and attention from her. It makes Sanji look like an idiot, frankly. It might not have been so bad, but I think this situation is compounded by Sanji's request for Jinbei to kill himself. That's really extreme. But in spite of Sanji,
I think he's being dramatic.
Nami still delivers a good, wholesome speech. Which afterwards, Nami then begins to have her first interaction with Shirahoshi, almost all of which appears to be off-screen while Jinbei is giving exposition. Priorities, man.
I love Sanji. I forgot that whole moment.
Why this is off-screen, I'll never know. Because the potential dynamic between
Sanji's seen some real ass, but not the one that he wants.
That Oda definitely should have made a bigger part of the arc. Like Shirahoshi, Nami spent a lot of time locked up in a room doing things she didn't want to do until Luffy came to save her. And Nami's mom also passed away.
It's true that those two actually listened to her properly.
While Jinbei is giving exposition, a giant transponder snail randomly, and I mean just out of nowhere,
it's not a bad point,
walks out of the sea forest to show the Straw Hats a broadcast from Hody Jones. Hody goes on with yet another one of his speeches, which Oda purposely makes Jinbei and Nami highlighted figures in listening to. Earlier, I reminded you after Hody's speech at Ryugu Palace that Oda had gone out of his way to highlight Nami, right? Nami was even the central figure he was supposed to be listening to Jinbei's retelling of Otohime, Fisher Tiger, and what happened with Arlong. Luffy wasn't important. In any other story, you would assume that because Oda went out of his way to include Nami in all this and highlight her, that Nami would be one of the characters involved and at the forefront of the arc's resolution. Would you not?
Come on, let me hear you say it just once. Come on.
Trust Goda.
No! No, the other thing. Come on.
Wrong!
Off the tip of your tongue. Let me hear it just once, please.
Nami is
wrong!
Nami has the nice dialogue exchange with Jinbei, but it doesn't correlate to anything else of relevance. Nami talks to Shirahoshi, but nothing comes of that. Nothing happens with Nami after she pieces together the history of the Fishmen. Even though it seemed like she had a plan and wanted to learn things. Nami teams up with Robin in order to grab keys and join the petition.
I really don't think it's that egregious. I think that's
for the rest of the arc.
Not even a nitpick. I don't even think it's an issue, but that's just me.
All of this happens so fast and without meaning that it's almost negligible in nature because there is no central conflict for Nami to solve. It just happens and there you go. In my opinion, Fishman Island more than likely should have been Nami's second character arc in the story. Or at least an arc where she is the most important person in getting everything done. It fits best with the story here considering the antagonists are weak, and it makes the most sense given Nami's history as a character.
The antagonist being weak to Saba Oda to here,
Nami has a history with Fishman. I don't know what went on during meetings and chapter discussions between Oda and his editors, but there is surely something wrong with how he wrote this arc. I don't get why he wrote the things he did for it to ultimately not connect to anything meaningful.
It's been good so far.
Nami basically gets hoed this entire arc.
What does he want Nami to do? I don't understand. I'm not entirely sure. I think he just wanted her to have more agency in this arc, and because of her and because Hody's tied back to Arlong too, especially. I think he just wanted more of those things to be more prominent in the forefront, but. It's a reasonable kind of thing to say, but I don't think it's that important. I don't think this had to be Nami's second arc, so to speak.
Being Jinbei about how they should proceed. Meanwhile, at Gyeongcourt Plaza, Oda continues to hype up Hody by having him take out the princes and the soldiers.
Because I never expected Nami to be
Megalo and brought
the
to
savior
Hody,
of the arc,
which brings up another topic of interest.
Her role.
Madame Charlie speaks up from the crowd and informs Hody that no matter what he does, he is destined to lose because she had prophesied that Luffy would be the one to destroy Fishman Island, meaning that anything he does doesn't matter. Jinbei overhears this because he's in the plaza too, just like everyone else. But apparently he had his ears shut because this is never brought up in the future of the story
not a character I think
to any
about
other person or acknowledged by Jinbei himself as something he cares about, which seems odd. He heard her say this and I guess ignored it. After this proclamation, Hody sends a water bullet and injures Madame Charlie. Hody then informs the audience that Charlie is Arlong's younger sister. Similar to my statement when it comes to Den, Madame Charlie being Arlong's younger sister has no purpose in the story and is not incorporated into a relevant plotline. If Hody didn't say it, it wouldn't have changed anything. This is yet another missed opportunity, because outside of her prophecies, Madame Charlie could have been a more prominent figure in the arc. You have her being Arlong's sister, we are dealing with the influence of Arlong, Nami, and the legacy all within Hody. Why Charlie isn't involved more, I don't know, because even in the flashback panels, we see that Charlie and Hody seemingly grew up in the same environment and knew each other, but turned out differently. Seems like that could have played into something more important, doesn't it? Once again, Oda chooses to ignore depth
Could have
and to
been,
stick
but that
to
doesn't
shallow
make it
waters.
worse, you know.
After waterboarding Charlie,
how fascism
Hody admits
never-
to killing
never wins
Otohime,
long-term,
has
it
a
doesn't to
cringy
destroy
speech to
itself.
Shirahoshi,
That's
where we learn
thematically
that
pretty
Shirahoshi
relevant.
knew the entire time that Hody was the one to kill Otohime because Megalo saw it happen. Hody calls Shirahoshi an idiot for not telling anybody because it resulted in Hody being able to do what he's doing right now. He then proceeds to hurt Shirahoshi's family as a form of taunting her. Now, Shirahoshi is an idiot for not saying anything, but that's the point, and it ties into her character archetype. She's a child in a teenager's body and is ignorant as a result of it. In her mind, she was just trying to do right by Otohime by attempting to move on. And given that she isn't really smart, this all kind of makes sense. It's at this point that the children ask Madame Charlie when Fishman Island is going to be destroyed, to which she replies with, "I don't know. In my visions, I only see the future. It might be tomorrow, it might be 1 year from now," which sets the rule that Charlie doesn't know when these things are going to occur. I'm sure Oda will stick to this rule later on.
God damn
The
it.
citizens start screaming for Luffy, and then Luffy shows up as designed. Nami uses her Mirage Tempo to turn herself and Robin invisible to steal the documents. Just so we're clear here, Nami has an ability that can turn herself invisible. That's, damn. I mean, that's pretty useful, right? Seems like the perfect ability to use for a rescue mission. I'm sure Oda will keep with continuity and definitely utilize this. The Straw Hats show up and the fight at the plaza begins. Luffy uses large-scale Conqueror's Haki, and we see a little bit of some new stuff that the Straw Hats are
Fair
capable of.
enough. That's a fair
Frankie
point.
unleashes his inventions. Usopp shows some effects of the pop greens. Sanji reveals that he developed Skywalk because he was running away from Okamas. Okay. As well as
What do
Hell
you mean,
Memories.
okay?
And
That's leg strength. You gotta run. Build the
ability which I'm sure Oda will remember to use again. Zoro doesn't do anything new. Chopper reveals some cheapified new forms, and most notable of all is the fact that he can now control Monster Point for a short duration of time, but afterwards is left completely helpless. The new design for Monster Point is a significant downgrade and loses virtually everything that was cool about it in the pre-time skip. I don't know what made Oda think this was a good choice, but Chopper is down bad. But there's lots of room for improvement, so maybe Oda has more in store later.
Ultimately, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I'll let him finish. Virgo
The
pissed
Straw Hats'
right
role
now
here
as a
is to
fucking
fight Hody's gang of
pissed.
dudes while Luffy fights Hody himself,
Virgo
as is
mad,
usual.
bro. That's very
Hody, obviously, is being easily overwhelmed and outclassed by Luffy, but through the power of crack, is able to hang on past the first few blows. Hody sees Vanderdecken's insane attempt of throwing the Noah and takes the fight into the ocean, where after an exchange with Luffy while he is at a disadvantage in the water, goes and mortally wounds Vanderdecken, under the idea, and Hody states this himself, that if he were to kill Vanderdecken, then his ability would cease to operate and the Noah would fall on Fishman Island. Much to my shock, upon my reread of Fishman Island, I realized that by the end of the arc, Vanderdecken didn't die. He was just tossed into the same jail cell as Hody, which makes this entire sequence kind of odd in retrospect because even Oda makes it seem like Vanderdecken needed to die in order for the Noah to fall. And it makes it more complicated because there is no guideline for which devil fruits stop whenever you are knocked out versus the ones that need to be manually turned off.
I was gonna say
Remember
that,
that Moria.
like I was wondering, like, is it because he was wounded so badly and passed out? It's like is his ability work no matter what? Like if you just take this ring and I toss it, and someone says, "Haha, you're ugly," and this knocks me out, it still goes. Like I don't know. So that's not a bad point. Chopper is so trash we can bring up by trees. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. And Sedusa Woods, he got clapped by some trees. I forgot about that.
Even if you kill him,
that was kind
his
of
fruit
pathetic.
would still
Fair
be
enough.
active. But yeah, the Decan gets stabby
Oda is
stabbed
called
by
the greatest,
Hody,
but isn't
and
held
that's
to
the end
the
of him in
standard
this
which
arc.
comes from
This
the
was the
greatest,
culmination
especially if you
of
have
the
Maria,
Vanderdecken.
Hara,
All of his
Togashi,
panel
who are
time
viewed
led to this
below him.
moment.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that those people are viewed below him. Togashi stands, which I'm not a fan of, are on their fucking high horse on the highest chair of Organization 13, looking down at everybody, and the writing is so good. Berserk is equally as regarded and heralded as a great manga in comparison, or if not better than One Piece by my Seinen group. Seinen is so much better group. So that's not true. I don't really care about Hara.
Simply incredible. Amazing. Hody then goes to terrorize Shirahoshi for the upteenth time.
Togashi
and
is
she is
over
saved by Luffy.
fucking rated.
Hody
Oh my
makes
lord.
yet another one of his villain speeches and says that Luffy can't protect anything.
You're not bad though. You overrated.
Luffy responds with,
What about
"Wrong.
Naoki or Sawa
I'll
the
protect
goat? I like
That's
him.
what the
I don't
last
have.
2
There's
years
nothing
were for.
he's put out
This
that I
dialogue
don't
from Luffy
love.
sets up
that
his
I don't
motivation
like.
and ideas around strength.
I
And
have
what
to
his
finish Billy
priorities
Bat.
are.
though. I didn't finish Billy Bat.
And I think comes off as a good
I like
line
him.
because it relates to the
He's got a
foundation of the
solid
time
library
skip.
of work.
Luffy trained during this portion so that he could be strong enough to protect his crew and never lose anybody ever again.
I'm not a Kingdom
This
fan.
dialogue from Luffy brings up some questions. How would Luffy react if he failed to protect his crew? If Luffy were to be defeated, would it call into question everything he's been trying to accomplish? I can't wait to see how Oda has this come into play.
Rumiko
Shortly after this
Takahashi is
encounter,
actually one of my favorite
Fukaboshi points
mangaka.
out all of the hypocrisies
She's in
in
my top
Hody's
5.
plan. Hody planned to take over and rule Fishman Island, but now wants to destroy it. He wanted the Fishman District
I don't
to
like
take over
Hunter x
because
Hunter.
they dislike humans.
I don't dislike Hunter x Hunter. I just think that people hold it in a higher regard than it deserves to be. I don't want to make this a Togashi. I'd be slandering Togashi at every opportunity. To make a long story short, I'll give you the super TLDR version. I've been reading Hunter x Hunter for years. I didn't get it. I didn't get into it in the 2011 anime. I've been reading that shit for a long time, where he would literally do this shit and fucking post it. What is this? Scribble. Nothing. And then take an entire page to tell me a nigga is sneaky. Oh, I don't trust him. The way that he moves is so blah, blah. You took an entire page. You took the time to draw all these fucking panels, put all these words in it and not draw anything. My problem with Togashi is very much tell, don't show. He don't show me nothing. He tell me something. Hisoka versus motherfucking, what's his name? Corollo. One of the worst fights in my opinion. Did not hold up. It's just them bobbing and weaving out the crowd. This nigga holding his book, just saying a bunch of shit. It's not a fight. It's narration. The anime is very good. Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter aren't bad series. I just hate the way people slurp it. It's not the greatest thing ever. There's so much wrong with it and so much he could do better. This is a visual telling medium. It's a graphic novel. Why am I constantly having all this text bombard me?
And now he plans on killing everybody. And if he accomplishes his goal,
Plus, he don't
there will
work.
be nothing left
They
for him
could
to
break
return
it.
to.
They could play
Hody then
fucking Dragon
reveals the
Quest
truth.
type beat.
Humans have never treated him wrong, and he's just a product of the environment because the fishmen didn't pay enough attention to each other. Hody is the chaotic embodiment of hatred. This is the narrative that Oda crafted for
My
Hody.
point is that you
and
can't
it
call
makes
Oda the
sense for
greatest
most
when other
part.
mangaka
I would
have
say
the
there is
same claim
actually
to
a
be held
missing
in high
link here with
standards. I've
Hody
never
in
called
terms
him
of
Oda
how
the
he got
greatest
from point A to
mangaka.
point B. I don't think you can make the argument that Hody wasn't serious earlier in the arc about
One
wanting
Piece
to
is my
become the new
favorite
ruler of
manga,
Fishman
but
Island.
I don't care if you think it's the
It wasn't
greatest
a
or not. It's
front.
my favorite. That's all I
Hody's
care
plan
about.
from the beginning wasn't to pull a Joker.
How much did you miss?
It wasn't
Like
all
hours-
about
an
chaos
hour and
from
some
the
change?
beginning.
After
There was a
reading Silver
structured
Scroll, I
idea
thought I was
driving his
missing
hand.
something.
Misguided,
Awful
but
fight.
still
It's-
there.
I don't think
And
it's very
somewhere
good,
in between all
personally.
of this, it changed from what he originally wanted to do into being chaos and going batshit crazy.
Oh, brother, not
Perhaps
the
you can
pain
make the
argument. Cut
that
it
his
out, man.
overdosing
Stop
on
capping,
pills is
bro.
partly to blame
Take his dick
because
out
he
your
seems
mouth.
to be obsessed with them after he gets his hair conikied. But I don't
Anime
even know if
only,
that's good
since
enough.
any of that, see,
Perhaps
different
being backed into
experience.
the
Our
corner
experience were different.
makes him just go insane, and that's a good enough justification. Overall, though, what Oda is going for is mostly substantiated through the writing. Hody ends up being what Fukaboshi said he was. The concept and evidence for a good theme are all present here. It connects back to Arlong, it makes sense with the Fisher Tiger flashback and how things shouldn't be done in front of children because it'll affect the future. Hody is a
I love
byproduct
Partisan.
of everything that shouldn't
The
have
election
happened.
arc is probably my favorite
Yet
arc.
despite this, Hody is commonly looked at as one of the primary reasons that people do not enjoy Fishman Island. Why is that? The writing makes sense, right? So what's wrong? Let's break it down. Ooh.
Hody Jones.
Hody Jones is a bit representative of Fishman Island in general because he dominates such a large portion of the story. So when you talk about the arc, you kind of have to bring in Hody. And Fishman Island as an arc was
just a
in
crackhead.
quite the difficult position.
Like he's really just a crackhead. Like Hody's just a crackhead, bro. Nigga just popping Molly, just a crackhead. He's not wrong. I do agree in hindsight. Like at the time, I didn't get the whole hatred thing. That was cool. Okay, hindsight, I'm like, yeah, okay, I agree with that. But he's still not interesting to follow. Like, I have a problem with people saying it makes sense if a lot of people do not find it interesting. It's not fun to follow. Better than the regular. Shit boring. He just wins every fight. Almost a fucking see this. He don't struggle or earn shit. It's fucking boring. Like, you still have to create an exciting narrative.
Fishman Island is the heir and recipient of all of the residual emotion, hype, and aftermath that came from Marineford.
So like the hate flow
I'm sure there was a lot of pressure due to how the popularity of One Piece boomed during this portion of the story. For Oda to create something that would keep up and retain the series'
Oda is
newly
one of the
acquired
best.
fame
There are many great
while managing
mangaka
to
before and
stay
after
true to
Oda.
Oda's
Totally
vision.
agree with that, Young Obama.
Arcs like Fishman Island can be subject
Fairly
to
new to manga.
overhate because
Do you have
of
any
where they are
recommendations
placed
of
in
your
the story
favorites? I've mostly
and how
seen
authors
anime.
go about handling them. It's a bit of a tough spot
I'm gonna
to
send
be
you
in
something. Give me
as a
sec.
creator.
I'll find it for you.
I'm sure you've watched movies or other anime where you'll finish something that is basically the super climax of a portion of the story, and then the following arc feels lackluster in comparison. That's just the natural result of having to start over. People are used to things continuing to build up, so whenever you get
This
that
will be
natural
updated
break
in a
of
later
momentum and
stream.
begin anew, it feels
But you
deflating.
can get a general
The
idea
MCU had
just
to
from my
deal with
manga
this
and
to an
anime
extreme
taste.
degree after Endgame. They need to go to the next phase of movies, and it's
I mean, Ultraman snorts cocaine. Does that count? He be turning up off the kryptonite. I said cocaine. He be turning off the kryptonite. But yeah, that what I just posted there is my top anime and manga list from 2019. I haven't updated it. It's not that different, but you'll see what my favorites are. Wandering Eminon, Medaka Box, Gintama, Sundome being amongst my favorite. But I really like romance, so you're gonna see a lot of things like Good Ending, Hedokoi, and stuff like that in there. Tasagade X Amnesia. I'm a really big fan of romance. But see, my romance gotta have fucking in it. If they're not fucking in it, keep it. I don't do that hold hand blush shit. Blow her back out or I ain't reading it.
It's hard to make the fans care as much as they once did with the original cast of characters and moving forward with new people.
I would like to
Or
make
to
a
feel the
Baki
same
joke, but I
excitement
think
because
only I
all
would
the
get
movies
it. Do it
Marvel
anyway.
had been leading up to a definitive end. And starting again makes people feel like it'll be
Zoro was
impossible
bad.
to make things new that don't just repeat the same formula. This wasn't really the case with One Piece. Unlike the example for Avengers Endgame, Marineford and 3D2Y naturally lend themselves to creating the feeling that you want to see more, because there isn't a definitive end to anything, just drama. So there is arguably more hype and excitement coming into Fishman Island and the New World than there is at any other point in the story, aside from maybe
No problem.
Wano. Which means that Hody Jones ends up being the first villain that a fresh
Just to note, Almighty, Brian, I'm a pretty big fan of like 80s animation, so a lot of my favorite anime are like from the 80s. I don't know if you're one of those people who think old animation is bad, but just
fit Straw Hats
forewarning.
encounter in the New World.
I love Dirty
and he
Pair
doesn't
and
really
Bubblegum
hold up
Crisis
well.
and things
Hody
like that.
Jones
Things
is a
like,
failed layered villain masquerading as a
Gunbuster.
one-dimensional character.
Ninja
Not that
Science
there's
Team
anything
Gatchaman.
wrong with one-dimensional villains, which is something that I think a lot of people tend to misconstrue.
Do I
since
actually
there is
like
a
Don
bad
Krieg? Don
stigma
Krieg is an
around
East
them.
Blue legend.
Not
I
every
love
villain
Don Krieg.
needs
I
to
love
have
him.
elaborate motives.
Baratie,
and
I
having
might
every
like
villain
Baratie more
be
than Arlong
super
Park,
complex
honestly.
can
I
run
really
the
might.
risk of taking
I
away
do.
from the most
My
important
favorite is
villains in
Blue
the
Arc
story if everyone's super special. Although, whether you have a complex or simple villain, there are qualities that are very important to the success of a villain's
I
implementation
think
in any
Bleach is
given
great.
story, which
No,
aren't
throughout.
reliant on character
Bleach is
depth.
cool.
Charisma,
Black Clover.
a commanding screen presence, character design, strength,
Drop is low-key
not
mid.
always physically related, and or
Respect
competence.
the OGs for sure. even
Good
though
villains
it's before
tend to
my time.
have these qualities
Like to
and
hear
then
that.
some, and having these
Crocodile!
qualities is particularly crucial for one-dimensional characters, which makes sense if you think about it. If you don't have character depth,
Hey,
then obviously you need to make up for it in
Don
other
Creek,
categories.
Diamond Brass Knuckle. They don't know nothing of Woods Gold Armor, Military Might, MH5. What they know about the East Blue Legend? Are you guys crazy? I love Don Creek. The Luffy even beat him. He got back up, and then Gin put him down. Hold on. I could make the case. I'm gonna make the video one day. I promise. Don Creek
in
is
order
so
to
fucking
stand
raw.
out. Crocodile, as he's presented within Alabasta, is the perfect example of a well-executed one-dimensional villain. Crocodile, of course, gains more depth outside of Alabasta,
down,
but while
baby.
he's in it, he's mostly just a Mr. McBad guy. Hody, by any comparison, has next to nothing.
forget Gin.
His dialogue
Yeah, Gin is
is
raw.
filled with cringy,
Crocodile, the best villain in
generic
the
villain
story,
talk,
easily, in my
the kind
opinion.
that
Don Creek
comes
was the
out
bomb
of
that said
like
he was
80s
the
and
greatest
90s
pirate.
cartoons,
Yeah.
and he doesn't
He
have
lied.
the
He capped.
charisma
Thought he was
to
the
pull it
greatest.
off and make it sound impactful.
Mihawk did run away.
Which
Hold
results
on.
in his speeches
Don Creek was
being
so fucking
off-putting
awesome.
and annoying.
I love it.
Nothing that Hody says is memorable.
I love it.
As a result of all of this. And clearly his refrigerator-esque design isn't anything to write home about, although his drugged up state is a step up, but he's not commanding any interest when he steps onto the court. Hody Jones is the One Piece equivalent of Kwame Brown. He's got no game whatsoever.
Kwame, don't come for me, bro. I ain't say it. I ain't agree with it. You not a bust. You one of the best players ever to walk planet Earth. It wasn't me. I didn't say it, bro. Don't come for me. I ain't part of the get along, go along gang. Mom, I don't want none of mama's cooking, bro. I don't want it. Wasn't me, bro.
And part of that is because Hody was placed into a sticky
He's like
situation.
CJ
The
Fish in One
audience
Piece.
knows Luffy and friends aren't going to struggle too
I
much
know it's
on the
not really a
first
popular
island.
opinion, but I like Don Creek.
You can
for real.
argue that Hody's lack of strength is more of a pro than it is a con. One of the main things going on in the background of this arc is that it's supposed to hint and reflect at the growth that the Straw Hats have coming out of the time skip. It'd be underwhelming if everything was like dead even. But Oda walks a dangerous line in doing this. During the arc, he continuously hypes up Hody for his strength, which doesn't really work given all that we've talked about in terms of the things that Hody lacks as a villain.
No, I
And
ain't agreeing
because
with
Hody
that.
lacks everything that
I
makes
did
the villains
nothing.
likable,
I didn't say it.
when Oda goes
wasn't
out
me.
of his way to give Hody screen time, it comes off as if he's forcing him on the audience, which has the complete opposite reaction that you would want as an author. If that was all there was, though, just a couple instances of Oda pretending that Hody was strong, this would still be doable and we could live with
See,
it.
when Zoro packed him underwater, I said I just stopped taking him seriously. I was way younger, so like the way I thought about stories was much different. But damn, I just tuned out. I was in high school, so
But something else happens on top of this, which kind of turns the tides in how Oda uses Hody
Cocaine's one
as
hell
a
of a
villain.
drug.
Oda turns Fishman Island into what he turns many arcs into when they have a successfully intimidating villain. Fishman Island turns into a, we have to save the entire country from being destroyed before the timer runs out. Save us, Luffy. Crocodile, Lucci, Dofi, Katakuri, Kaido, and Nell. All of these villains have a ticking time bomb within their respective arcs. And you'll notice that if you place Hody in this group, that one of these things is not like the other. Hody sticks out like a sore thumb, and horribly so. The ticking time bomb method doesn't work in arcs where the main
I'm a
villain
long time
doesn't
reader.
pose
When
a
I
serious or
I
viable.
caught up to One Piece, I'm 28. I was born in '93. I'm an old man. I'm gonna be 30 in 2 years. When I caught up to One Piece, I was in Water 7. We were going to NES lobbies. That's how long I've been reading One Piece. I've been reading it for more than half my life.
threat to the story. Oda
It's followed me
over-dramatizes an
through,
arc that doesn't have any
like,
believable
being a
tension because Hody
preteen,
himself is an
teenager, young
unbelievable
adult
threat
to
that
adult.
feels satisfying to overcome. And even though Luffy is supposed to be significantly stronger than Hody, Luffy still comes out of the arc almost dead as a result in order for Oda to create drama with the blood transfusion plotline. Which, in an arc where all of the Straw Hats outside of Luffy beat their foes relatively easily, Luffy being the only person to struggle does seem kind of odd. But to add insult to injury, Oda has Hody tag team with Vander Decken.
I disagree with this solely due to the fact that Luffy did not try very hard. I don't think he tried very hard. Plus, he was fighting him underwater for a long time and still doing work. And a lot of the blood loss and exhaustion came from him trying to break the Noah before it could destroy the island. I don't think Hody Jones put up any type of fight against Luffy in the anime. They tried to like change it up. He popped more mollies and started speed blitzing, but he didn't use Gear Force or none of that. So like I can't agree with that point. Like, yes, I know the point of that was more so to show like the blood transfusion and have Jinbei give that blood to Luffy, a symbolic gesture that's different from what happened with Fishman Tiger in the grand scheme. I think it works, but I really don't agree with the like, oh, he struggled, what's a weird decision. I don't agree with that. That's fine.
As the arc's main threats, Vanderdecken, who is a gag villain with wasted potential that makes nonsensical decisions. These two people are the vehicles used to deliver the themes of Fishman Island, and I think that is a recipe for disaster. Hody is a symbol of generational hatred and racism, but that's all he is. A symbol.
What do you mean?
Hody has no other character in the arc to play off of in order to elevate himself beyond goon status, which is something that is sorely needed given the type of person that Hody was supposed to be. Hody is just living and surviving off of the attachment to other characters rather than his own merits. Nothing exists between him and Luffy, Charlie, Shirahoshi, Fukaboshi, or even Nami.
I do think his point about her being Arlong's brother not meaning anything significant
not only does Hody have nothing that makes villains likable in his repertoire, he also has no character dynamics or intrigue.
And he's not strong.
Any depth outside of things that aren't really in his control to make up for it. No good character aspects and no strength.
Okay.
So it's kind of reasonable why people don't really like Hody Jones. Fishman Island is a classic example of themes versus execution. The themes of Fishman Island fail to be as impactful as they otherwise could be because of the execution of its characters and subplots. And if the vehicles for delivering your theme aren't up to code and are constantly breaking down, then it's no wonder why they don't work. The cherry on top is that even though Fishman Island was the pit stop just before the New World, it ends up being a fairly long arc, coming in at a staggering 51 chapters.
Yeah, like, it's significant to just show the contrast of like how different Hody and Shirley is or whatever, but I think Rich's point that in the grander scheme of things, like, let's say we never knew that, what would really change? You know what I'm saying? Like, knowing their blood ties to Arlong. I get his grander point there. I hear what you're saying around
So this is not a short arc, and the fact that it's long is not something that works well in its favor. Because the longer you stay
Zodiac killing Kaido Club, let's go.
And giving all of them
it's weird that Jinbei is the only strong person in this whole...
Hody isn't even worthy of sniffing Arlong's webbed feet when it comes to being a villain.
That's a fact.
Hody is the stereotype of a sequel being worse than the original. If you were to try and compare these two villains, you'll see that Hody fails in every category that Arlong succeeds in. Arlong has a fairly decent design. He's intimidating. He has charisma and screen presence. He's strong. His hate for humans is clearly felt, and it's even better in Fishman Island than Hody's is.
He's strong? Cap.
Is just looking at the Fisher Tiger flashback.
I love the old animation so much too, Arlong bro.
Gets to play off of Jinbei and Fisher Tiger.
Ah, take us back.
But most importantly, Arlong's villainy resonates to the audience because of how it ties back to Nami and the crew. Because Oda made that the main focus of the story.
Hold on now. I don't know about that one.
That's why that
I don't know if I believe that. We'll talk about that one day.
The same can't be said with Hody.
Hit him with that exploding axe, the exploding spear,
or the audience.
Pull out the machine, hit him with the poison.
That is why the writing doesn't always
brass knuckles, make
just
bink,
because it quote unquote
lifting
fits.
1 ton with one hand.
Enough of that. Let's
Dog
go ahead
Creek.
And try to wrap things up with the arc summary. As we know, Hody ends up being defeated by Luffy, and then Luffy is stopped by the Sea Kings and Shirahoshi due to the Noah's descent. Everyone begins to celebrate Luffy's victory on the mainland, but disaster strikes. Shirahoshi swims down to inform everyone that Luffy has lost too much blood from his bite wound against Hody.
Is that dude who drinks
without a blood transfusion, he would die. This makes it seem like injuries and the amount of blood you have in your body matter to your overall health, which, I mean, it makes sense. Injuries can be some of the most powerful aspects of storytelling because injury creates sympathy, emotion, and concern. I look forward to seeing how Oda will
Kaido.
implement using injury as a seried method of drama in the future.
You know what?
Jinbei steps forward out of the dust at the Straw Hats' pleas, and we get that beautiful scene between Captain and future crewmate. This moment and most of the epilogue for Fishman Island is actually pretty damn good, which ends up being an Oda staple. He normally nails epilogues. The big party, the Poseidon reveal, Big Mom's character design, Tamago Peckham's, there are things at play here that are easy to digest and interesting to look at. It's a wonder why the entire arc couldn't be like this. Oda does well when the events that are happening in the arc have little to do with the central conflict or the writing of that flashback. One of the things that Fishman Island shows, outside of this, is that the Straw Hats still have more left in the tank and can take on stronger foes. They are feeling very confident in themselves for jumping this hurdle, which makes the audience and the Straw Hats feel as though they've actually advanced. One of the last
I think I was the
events to
only
occur
person
within
that
Fishman
knew that
Island is
wound,
the
that
Minister
wound that
of the
Odi,
Left
that
gifting
Odi, that
Nami the
Luffy took
three-directional
wasn't
log
gonna
pose.
put him down.
This is
I don't know
something
why.
that may never get an answer because I don't have access to the information necessary, but I'm going to go out on a limb and make an educated guess that Oda originally planned to use this log pose more than he currently has in the story. Much earlier in the script, I mentioned that Oda confirmed to us that he's combined numerous eyeliner ideas together in order to create arcs like Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, right? The fact that he did this infers the original desire to have the Straw Hats sail around more than they did. If you have to get to more islands, then that means that more sailing needs to be done, right? My suspicion is that Oda decided to combine the ideas of Punk Hazard and Dressrosa after the introduction of this log pose, because it's the only thing that makes sense to me as an answer. You may not know it, but this log pose has actually not been used yet, which makes its introduction questionable. The Straw Hats have been traveling almost exclusively by Viva cards. This log pose doesn't serve a purpose because of how the Straw Hats get from one place to another, and that happened over the course of one arc. But luckily for Oda, he can always come back to this when he needs it. Sometimes the plan changes and it's up to the author to adapt the story to compensate.
Law ruined the
The
log
only
post.
negative
Emo
aspect to
bump.
this is that it does hurt navigation and it comes off as odd because Nami got roasted for not having it. Outside of that, the Straw Hats say goodbye to Jinbei, who is on his way to Big Mom, and they make their promise to Shirahoshi. We end up seeing that Hody and his crew age due to the effects of the Tamako box,
Losers.
which was then sent to Big Mom. So you see things have been set into motion for Whole Cake Island when we eventually get there. And this is a smart thing for Oda to do, and it's something that he normally does do. Oda is very talented at planting seeds for future plot points. Everything ends with the Straw Hats ready for their next adventure and sailing out
I
of
love
Fishman
when they
Island as the
resurface in the
heroes.
new world though, and it's just like that sea
Having
of hell.
covered basically everything in the arc, there is one more character that I want to dive into and take a look at before I give my conclusion statement on the arc overall.
Uh-oh. Chill on my girl, baby.
In the pre-time skip, One Piece had a total of 2 princess characters in its 23 arcs, Vivi and Boa Hancock. In the 8 arcs of the post-time skip, there are 8 prominent princess characters that are connected to some type of royalty.
Disney.
Rebecca, Viola, Mancherry, Pudding. Viola. I need it. Reiju, Hiyori, Yamato, and of course Shirahoshi. As you can see, this royalty concept is something that Oda is including in virtually every single arc.
Does Momo
and
not
in many
count? He's a
cases,
prince. Well,
multiple
princess,
times.
but he's a prince. Like, I don't know.
Princess-like characters play an important role in the politics of the world because
Amatu
they connect
Sakia,
the
bloodhead ass
pro
nigga.
Straw Hat agenda into the endgame of the story with the final war. Luffy gains his allies through the rescuing of these
Reiju,
fallen
I think Reiju
kingdoms
because
and its
Reiju was
various
still at the time technically royalty because of her connecting to Judge. I think I wouldn't have added Reiju in there, but I think he was just being literal at that point.
royalty. And these royalty characters are people we are going to analyze in depth because there is a lot riding on how well they are written and executed
Viola,
in their respective
the girl that
arcs.
you got up-
If Oda
that you got
fails
one
in
finish.
writing these critical characters,
I'm
it's
watching this for the
significantly
first
harder
time.
to
It's
make
not
the
as bad
audience
as I've been
engage
hearing. I
with
just
and
don't agree with
care
some of his
about them
opinions, but some are
and the
different.
islands they're
That's it.
associated
That's
with.
all. That's all Driss is really asking for. Like, if you're gonna like comment on him, say he's ugly, you suck, you dummy, just give it a fair chance, watch it through, and this all you have to do is say where you disagree. That's what I've been doing. There's a lot of things he's been saying here that I have not agreed with. That's all. It's not a big deal. Like, I don't understand what's wrong with people. Like, I don't know what world we live in where you can't just be like, hey, you see it this way, I see it this way. And it's just discourse. But I'm a grown ass man that can do that. A lot of people, I guess, can't.
When the story goes beyond the arc.
Momo acts bitch made.
Imagine if during the Alabasta and Summer War sagas that
Do
Vivi
we
and
count
Boa
Viola
were
Princess?
insufferable. Poorly
She was
written
gonna be queen,
characters
wasn't
with
she? Until
next to
I don't even
nothing
remember.
going
Hold on, let me
for
check
them.
something. I don't remember her.
Well,
I don't remember her blood
The
relation to
quality of
Riku.
those sagas,
I'll check that again.
especially Alabasta, would be much worse off if that were the case. And the Reverie would be a lot less interesting because the abolishment of the warlords would be much harder to care about
She was
since
like
Boa's
someone's
situation
sister.
is quite literally
Was it
half of the
Kuros's
reason why
wife's
people
sister?
care. Her and Mihawk are the
She's
only
a second
remaining
daughter,
warlords that
the Riku
impact
family.
the audience's investment through its abolishment.
She's a younger
Fishman
sister of
Island gives
Scarlet.
us Shirahoshi,
So, yeah, she's
who
royalty,
ranks
technically.
very high among the princess characters in terms of importance. She's an ancient weapon and the most relevant living figure when it comes to people of different races. Additionally, Oda went out of his way in designing Shirahoshi to make her someone that could be comparable to Boa Hancock in his eyes in terms of beauty, and he's talked about this in interviews of how stressful it is to draw those kinds of characters. So obviously, Oda has deemed that the usage of Shirahoshi in the story is critical to its future, which makes sense because she's inherently linked to the history of Joy Boy, the Noah, and the symbology of the sun, which means that Fishman Island is very important in setting the tone and making the audience care about her as an individual. So, let's ask the question. Does Fishman Island do a good job with Shirahoshi as a character?
Yes. Yes. I'm going to argue yes. I'm going to hear what he has to say. Yes.
If you recall back to my thoughts on Shirahoshi talking to Luffy inside of her tower, I have a preference for the type of character that Shirahoshi is, and enjoyed that interaction very much. But in spite of my preference for that archetype, I don't think Fishman Island does Shirahoshi justice for what she is supposed to be. When people talk about Shirahoshi post Fishman Island,
Think it's a mixed
all
bag?
plot oriented and no one really cares about her feelings as a character
That's fair.
or what she could accomplish. And a large portion of this separation can be seen in how Oda
Easily the best
incorporated
princess
her
post
into
time
the
skip
plot
though.
of
I'll
Fishman
take it.
Island.
I'll take it.
Shirahoshi peaked during her conversation with Luffy and never reached that high again. The majority of her moments are underwhelming or just okay.
Good princess of light like Kingdom Hearts.
Let's go over the rest of what Shirahoshi is involved with after leaving her tower so I can better frame
Oh,
this.
Kingdom Hearts really hurt my feelings.
Shirahoshi has a run-in with Vanderdecken, the person responsible for imprisoning her for a decade, and we get the
After Momo,
"You're
I
not
don't-
my
I don't-
type"
I-
gag.
I don't know. I'm mixed on
Shirahoshi
Momo.
visits Otohime's grave, and we get a bit of her in the flashback as a little kid. Then Shirahoshi talks to Nami and bonds with her off-screen. Shirahoshi leaves with Jinbei to go to Gyeongcourt Plaza, gets fooled by a blow-up doll of Neptune, and is captured. Hody Jones tells her that he killed Otohime, and Shirahoshi has the "I already knew that" moment. After being freed, she stays near Surame until Noah crests the
I
horizon.
think Sanji is the princess of Whole Cake
Then
Island.
she
That's funny.
basically just swims around, distracting the Noah while yelling, and is occasionally tormented by Hody. After Luffy stops the Noah, she has a conversation with the Sea Kings and then takes Luffy down to the surface screaming for help. And then the final thing she does in the arc is to make her promise with
Momo
the crew,
was fine,
which in my opinion
I don't know about
is the
great,
second best
but
thing
he has
involving
some really good
Shirahoshi in the
moments,
arc
like
in
the
terms
Udon
of
prison
feel-good
speech.
character
That was
moments.
really good. I like that.
All in all, not a whole lot of positives going on here to make Shirahoshi appear outstanding in any way. When Shirahoshi isn't alone in conversation with Luffy or the Straw Hats, the negative aspects of her character archetype take over. Shirahoshi is true to her nickname. She is a crybaby. And it's a persona that fits well with the design of her character, as I've gone over before. She's a child, but she looks closer to an adult. Japan's obsession with sexualizing 16-year-olds is impressive, to say the least. You will notice that in a lot of stories, there are certain characters that tend to get on people's nerves more than others. Even if it's for the wrong reasons, there are things that make readers distance themselves from people unless that person is involved in things that keep them interested. And the number one thing
I
that
like
tends
Shinji.
to push people away is when characters scream, cry, and yell
Oh, God,
incessantly.
Bakugo, you fucking annoy
Just
me.
like how it is with babies in real life, the first reaction to hearing this is to stem the noise. It's irritating. People want to see these
Look at that-
characters
look at that shot
develop
put
and
forward,
go
though.
beyond
Hold on.
the baby status.
Look at you, all niggas
Shirahoshi
over
does a
there.
lot of crying, which is fine in of itself, but it becomes a negatively defining feature of hers because Oda doesn't do a whole lot with her in Fishman Island, so it tends to be what she's most remembered for, which affects her likability. There are elements that I've already talked about which work against her, and to illuminate
Yo, could you
these
imagine just eating a bowl and the bowl you could just dive into that bitch like the spaghetti is the size of you? That's so crazy.
elements, I'll begin an unfair comparison between Shirahoshi and Vivi, the premier princess of One Piece. There are a variety of reasons as to
Goku
why
is the
no
GOAT,
one has
it's a
been
fact.
able to come
Kinda
close
wish
to Vivi among the princess characters.
Kin question Luffy.
And
more?
near the
Wait, who?
top of that list is the way in which Oda went about acclimating Vivi into the Straw Hats as an individual. Vivi is with the Straw Hats for almost the entirety of her saga, so she has 3 arcs under her belt with the crew before they even step foot in Alabasta. This gave Vivi a lot of time for character interaction, growth, fun, and everything in between, which creates a genuine human connection to the main cast, which increases the investment into Vivi's plight. Shirahoshi and the other princesses aren't going to have the luxury of being with the Straw Hats for multiple arcs in a row, so they can't all be like Vivi, nor do they have to be. That's why
Thank you. I'm glad he said unfair comparison. I do think Vivi is the premier and best princess in the series. Yeah, I don't even think that's debatable. Honorary Straw Hat, but their roles in their respective arcs and goals are so fundamentally different. Even though there's some overlap, that I just find it hard to really compare them in that sense. I really don't think Shirahoshi is a bad character in Whole Cake Island. I think Oda does enough to set up the fact that you want to see her grow, be less of a crybaby. She even says this in Reverie, I blah blah blah, so Luffy won't call me Wikahoshi anymore, things of that nature. On top of the fact that I really find that her not telling what Magalo saw to be an indication that she understood her mother's true wishes about not continuing a cycle of hatred, not letting the children see certain things. It's a sign and symbol of strength of character. Even though I do think it's dumb in the long run to not perpetuate that hatred. And my hopes and dreams was that what was going to happen was she was going to take a proactive role in Reverie for fighting for the Fishman's not being discriminated against and eventually coming to the surface and being the sun. The fact that she's Poseidon, can speak to Sea Kings and stuff like that too, still give her a level of intrigue and relative importance moving into the later halves of the series, regardless if you think she's interesting or not. I don't find her defining trait as being a crybaby to be particularly annoying. That's just me though. I think Rebecca is far more annoying than Shirahoshi.
my part of this is an unfair comparison. But when we look at these princess characters, we need to look for what Oda is trying to accomplish, what was the potential, and at the end of the day, how good is it? And with Shirahoshi, there was a lot of potential for her to be better than she is. The typical reaction
demonstrates
that you would expect
how
from someone who has been
Shirahoshi
locked
isn't even
away for a
close to how
majority
the
of their
character
life
Vivi
is
is.
hesitance, having a fear of the unknown, and being rather squeamish, which is
Dualism
Shirahoshi down
with her
to a
pacifism
T.
being a weapon makes her
Shirahoshi
interesting,
is a
yeah.
character that is
To be
supposed
honest,
to
the non-Reverie
develop
stuff
past
is
her
where I would
cowardice
argue she
and
could
grow
be
into a
bad,
person that can walk on her
but
own
prior
two
to that, she's
fins
just okay.
due to Luffy's influence in her life. But Oda's attempt to have Shirahoshi evolve into that kind of person is heavily thwarted by her lack of shining moments and the antagonists of her arc. This just goes to show you the extent of bad that Hody and Vanderdecken are. Vanderdecken brings nothing positive to the table, and doubly so when it comes to Shirahoshi.
Yo, I'm so with the
She doesn't
Vanderdecken
have
bash.
to overcome
Fuck this
anything on
nigga, bro.
that
He's
front
such a
that makes her
bozo.
rise above Vanderdecken or Hody in a compelling way. Her silence about the murder of Otsahime is a nice thought, but doesn't combine well with Hody's antagonist role. And because Shirahoshi herself, after this moment, is only a yelling, screaming, and crying damsel in distress, it works against the prospect of liking her. Oda doesn't give her true shining moments that make it feel like she's moved
was a
past a
groomer
certain
for
point
real,
and we can be
fam.
proud of her. I mentioned before how Vivi had numerous arcs prior to Alabasta where she had time to shine and interact. But even if you were to isolate Alabasta as a single arc and take away the other 3 arcs, there are still many more moments that we can go back to and point out where Vivi came off well.
I love this scene too because it highlights how Luffy is not naive. He's stupid, he's an ape, and he's gullible, but he's not naive, and I don't know why people don't see that. He's not a naive kid. Niggas die every day, B. Every day, B.
やめてよ、そんなこと言うの。今度言ったら許せないわ。今それを止めようとしてるんじゃない。反乱軍も国王軍もこの国の人たちは誰も悪くないのに、なぜ誰かが死ななきゃならないの。悪いのは全部クロコダイルなのに。
She don't got anything close to this man. It's so sad.
じゃあなんでお前は命かけてんだ。
I don't know. I don't know. I don't expect that. I don't expect that. I guess that's an expectation thing. They're
この
not
国を見りゃな。
her role and active care for her kingdom is so much larger. She's not protected. She was on the run, gathering information to figure out who the fuck Crocodile and things were. Like to me, like the only reason I'm not upset is because Drit said unfair comparison, and I still think it's unfair. I don't think this is a fair comparison, even though they're both princes of an arc.
一番にやんなきゃいけねえ。
Vivi's goals here are so much more different and so much in line and in tandem with other things. Like there's a brief overlap, but anyways.
ことくれ。
Vivi go though.
何よ。俺たちバカッピゴ。
ユバはね、砂なんかには負けないよ。
お前なんかの命一個でかけたりるもんか。じゃあ一体何をかけたらいいの。
Let's start live too, dude.
私はあの男を許さない。何を。
She hit first, that's my goal. Impressed Sanji didn't jump
他に
Luffy.
かけられるも
I
の
hate
な
and
ん
love
て
that I understand everything she's saying.
何も。
She should
俺たちの命くらい一緒にかけてみろ。
Yeah, I'm not saying have a scene in the same vein as this. I'm just having a scene the quality of this. It's a bit unfair. Shirahoshi's a pacifist. Vivi isn't. They're different. Shirahoshi still fighting for peace, but pacifist. Rose Rockets, copyright.
出るじゃねえか。
He showed the whole
そう
clip.
いう涙。
How is Vivi bleeding? Hockey confirmed. she. Did you not see the first hit? That nigga Luffy flipped off the tree. She's strong as shit.
反乱はきっと止めるから。
Man, the
お
old
前が一
anime
番
is so
悔
much
しくて
different compared to Russell. I
あい
love
つ
the
をぶ
old
っ飛ばしてん
animation.
だ。
That, at this point, to me, the animation was fine and great. But my favorite stretch is Long Ring, Long Arc to
広
Marineford.
場の爆破まで時間がないの。もうみんなやられちゃったし。私の声はもう誰にも戻せない。
People say Oda had
この
happy
ままじゃ。
in the first chapter. I too like the earlier personal books. I wonder when we used to get some character moments. Maybe should have used them moves on Crocodile? Yeah. Cut it out. Thank you for the follow. We hear your voice. Ah! You hear your voice just fine, baby. Crocodile!
私は
Pell cannot be defeated. Pell is the strongest character of all time.
海賊だろ。でもありゃ本来相手への死を意味するんだぞ。いいんだ、罰がいい。
なあビビ、かっこいいも
I
んね。
can't wait for you guys to see my
私もそ
crocodile
れがいい。
video, man.
何でもいいから書けよ。問題はそこじゃねえんだ
I
よ。
gotta hit 4K first though on YouTube. It's not coming out. I don't care.
私は
Imagine she showed she had a scene at this level of quality, man. I'd have to say she's great. I hear what you're saying.
私は
I stand by my points about Shirahoshi.
仲間の印だ
It's not something that anyone's really agreed with since the first time I brought it up, so it's not really like a new thing. It's like Superman versus Batman. I don't really care anymore. It is what it is. But at one point, she was in my top 6. Remember when the editor said he cried because of the scabbards? Yikes. Bro, why is he showing a whole episode as if we didn't watch One Piece 4 hours into the intro of the vid? He's trying to highlight his point because he thinks these scenes are important and highlight her interpersonal relationship with the Straw Hats and how she ties in with them and how she had agency and much more importance in her story. Even if you remove the other arcs in which she kind of transitioned into the crew, even if he's focused on Alabasta. That's his larger point here. It's a great scene though. Yeah, I mean, put the fist up, baby. Pell, the secret enemy of the throne. He's immortal. Yo, Pell, the empty throne. Pell, hold on. Imu-sama, is that you?
仲間の印だ
Shirahoshi doesn't have anything close to this happen, and I would argue that the role of Fukaboshi, her brother, in the arc doesn't do anything to help Shirahoshi's case either, as Fukaboshi ends up being the person who has the most relevant interaction with Hody in order to expose the type of person he is. Which, not only does that concept fall flat because Hody sucks, there's less reason to care about Fukaboshi than there is Shirahoshi, but Fukaboshi gets the scene of talking to the country about their future when it probably should have went to Shirahoshi because, you know. But Oda might have had Fukaboshi come in to fill the spot because Shirahoshi isn't really smart enough to put the concepts together, and maybe Oda needed someone from the Fishmen.
He's also extremely protected and doesn't know much. Like, remember when she's like, what did she say to Garp? Is that a... He's like, that's a tree. Like, she's ignorant to the world, man. Like, she can't have a conversation. This is what I mean. Like, it really is not a fair comparison, in my opinion.
Who was connected to Otohime to recognize what was happening. Wah, wah. Everything ends up being surface level, and the character interactions aren't fully explored. I really, really wish Oda would have focused more on giving Shirahoshi better moments, as well as developing the relationship she had with Luffy and Nami, especially Nami, because there's more things that Oda can do with Nami and Shirahoshi that he can't do necessarily with Luffy. And he could have given them a subplot post-bonding so that they could have come together to do something that matters. Or at the very least, give her another subplot with Luffy that isn't just running, crying, and screaming through the water, because is that really satisfying to read? No. If Oda had fixed this at the end of the arc, when she makes her promise with Luffy and the crew,
reading is
it would
not
have
as
come off as
troublesome
much
as
more
having to watch it
satisfying,
and hear
and
it.
Shirahoshi herself would have felt like someone we would have wanted to see again and think about when it came to the Reverie.
I thought about
because we
her
could
and
see
cared
a
about
good
seeing her in
continuation of
Reverie.
Otohime's will present in one of the most important characters in the series. Unfortunate, I suppose, but maybe the next princess will be better. So, in conclusion, the first entry into the New World is a long one that struggles to deliver uniform quality.
It was an Abby saw me
The bad antagonists, underutilized
That's why I hope
characters,
she knows
and
she's
side
growing in
quests
the ongoing
help
future war
detract
against the
from what
government
could
bit by
have
bit.
been. As I said
Shout out
before,
to
Fishman
BDB.
Island is an arc pretending
I hope
to be
so,
something
too.
that it's not.
Rand,
It's hard
I
to
really
say,
do. I don't
in
know,
all
though.
fairness, that Fishman Island doesn't deserve its reputation as being one of the weaker arcs in the series, given the circumstances.
That's fair.
But everything's not doom and gloom. Fishman Island is carried by its epilogue and flashback, and these end up being the diamonds in the rough that you go back to and find within the arc upon analysis. And like with many things, it is not one instance of failure that determines the future permanently, but many. Fishman Island by itself doesn't make the post-time skip what I say it is, but it does certainly contribute.
Ding! Shout out to Sonic, Nick. Failure. Chile.
similar fashion to the Straw Hats' journey to Fishman Island, the voyage up carries similar features, in that there is some more messing around on board the ship. No conversation this time to make use of the alone time, but everything ends with a nice spread of the Straw Hats breaking the surface alongside the pod of whales they hitched a ride from. It's a romantic scene in the sense that it is very adventurous, but as luck would have it, the Straw Hats emerged right next to Punk Hazard. They overhear screaming on the ship's Dendemushi about people being attacked by a samurai, a buzzword which prompts Brook to explain to the crew that samurai are a group of warriors specifically from Wano, and that, quote, Wano's samurai are so strong that not even the Marines go there, end quote. Oda starts doing some groundwork for Wano right away as soon as we get out of the waters, and this sets up expectations for the future from what we expect from the samurai. Luffy wants to explore the island, but a wall of fire prevents the crew from doing so. Nami is able to circumvent this issue by using Milky Road, an ability from her Climattack that creates a road of clouds that they can get across and up over the flames using the Mini Mary. This is a neat ability which, like a few abilities in this arc, is used solely within Punk Hazard and is never seen again. As is the norm, afterwards the Straw Hats separate into groups in order to explore the island. Luffy, Zoro, Robin, and Usopp head out to the island while Chopper, Sanji, Nami, Frankie, and Brook defend the Sunny. Once again, the exploration of the island in the beginning portion of the arc is great. This is something Oda almost always nails. Luffy's group encounters a dragon made by Vegapunk and team up to behead it. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats, all back at the Sunny, are captured, which will be the first of 3 times that this happens within the arc. After killing the beast, Luffy pulls Kinemon's legs out from its body, where Kinemon proceeds to communicate via his farts, something he never does again. At first, I thought there was an extremely minor continuity break here between Punk Hazard and Wano. Kinemon and later on Momonosuke are both introduced saying traditional samurai things like Daigozaru at the end of their sentences to further emphasize their culture. These sayings stop somewhere between Punk Hazard and Wano, and I assumed that it was due to a translation choice rather than something that changed within the story, so I asked around, and from what I could find, the translators for Viz and English scans stopped using these phrases, but they still exist in the Japanese RAWs. So that's a nice little detail in case anybody else realized this when they were rereading. This change makes a lot of sense because it's going to be a lot easier for English audiences to read stuff and have it flow better in their mind. The kidnapped Straw Hats have been placed in a holding cell by the guards, where Frankie wakes up to see that Sanji isn't strong enough to break down the cell door. Brook wasn't captured alongside this group because he's Brook, and the Straw Hats find Kinemon's puzzle piece-like head within the same holding cell as them. In this manner, Kinemon is introduced to both groups of the Straw Hats, but only interacts with Nami's group. In Kinemon's interactions, he spouts numerous sexist sayings towards Nami, such as, "How dare you speak to a warrior with that tone, woman? Women are to be graceful, mind their tongues, and speak when they are spoken to." Unlike the information that I just gave you concerning the speaking patterns of the samurai, there is a true continuity break here, because the way that Kinemon acts superimposes the idea that Wano and he himself as a character are home to very specific sexist ideologies, which would be historically accurate to Japan's past and present history, which could have been a fantastic idea, but in retrospect is confusing because Kinemon's own relationship with women doesn't reflect what he says to Nami. Suru ends up being someone that has a dominant personality when it comes to relationships with Kinemon, and Kinemon is also friends with Kiku, who, well, yeah, if Kinemon has stereotypical views on sex, that would not be the case. And Wano doesn't give anything to fuel this belief system or explore it in any depth when the Straw Hats do land there. This would be the case of a future arc creating errors in a past arc due to one reason or another. It could be that Oda changed his mind at some point in time, but there are numerous sections of Punk Hazard that allude to this idea, as you'll see. The Straw Hats reveal that they are pirates, which produces a heated response from Kinemon. If you are indeed pirates, then it would explain your barbarity. I hate pirates with a passion so strong, I could vomit. Nami is shown to react to the statement in surprise and confusion. You'll notice from the track record in Fishman Island that Oda is beginning a trend here. Characters' curiosities never carry over into anything relevant. Nami, as we know, has a past history with believing the exact same thing that Kinemon just said. that pirates are evil and there's no such thing as a good pirate. So there was an opportunity here and in the future for some character interaction between Nami and Kinemon,
It's been a retcon.
which might have been very good to do because there's obviously, beginning in Punk Hazard, a sexist divide between Nami and Kinemon, but wah wah. Frankie radical beams the vault door, which allows the Straw Hats to leave their room. Sanji has a nice moment with Kinemon that convinces him to follow the Straw Hats, and Sanji takes responsibility for what will happen to Kinemon from this point in time. This will be the first of a few side conversations that Sanji has with Kinemon, which gives the impression that this character dynamic and relationship is going somewhere. An odd piece of information which has yet to be explained in the story is the fact that Sanji has information concerning the culture of Wano. When the Straw Hats are about to leave their cell, Sanji reveals that Kinemon's top knot hairstyle is a standard hairstyle that is indigenous to Wano. I don't know how Sanji knows this or why it's even brought up. When we eventually get to Wano, Sanji has no other information or history to provide about the country, which makes his knowledge here a bit odd. I think Oda just wanted to give this info to the audience and decided to use Sanji as an outlet. After Sanji grabs Kinemon's head, the scene transitions to the Straw Hats running away from the guards that are chasing them when they stumble into the biscuit room and find the enlarged kids.
Magazines.
The Straw Hats start running through the biscuit room when Kinemon introduces his second
I actually like
sexist
Punk
remark.
Hazard.
Quote,
Probably my second
struck
favorite
by
arc.
a woman, my honor is in tatters.
In
I must slice my belly open to regain it. End quote.
Nah, maybe not.
Nami
Second?
even calls him a chauvinist
I don't-
pig
I
in
don't-
response to this,
I don't
which reiterates the
dislike.
sexist theme within Kinemon's character. As the Straw Hats are running, Lind asks for the Straw Hats' help in saving them, and Mocha specifically asks Nami for help, which gives Nami pause. In this scenario, the kids really do come off well. Their cries for help feel genuine and provoke empathy from the reader and myself.
Fuck
And
them
then Sanji
big ass
happens.
kids.
Sanji, for some reason, insists that Nami should just ignore the plights of the crying children. He adopts a Michael Jordan-esque attitude of saying,
Fuck them kids." Let's go,
Despite the
Sanji,
fact
my
that
king.
Sanji himself
Fuck.
just went out of his way to help Kinemon, a person he doesn't even know. We just met them seconds ago. We don't know their story, and we're not running a rescue charity. Everything says to Nami here could easily apply to himself and what he did with Kinemon. They only knew Kinemon was here, needed help, and was looking for his son. The children wanted to escape, see their parents, and needed help.
I don't even.
So it's kind of...
I don't. I have this sinking suspicion that a lot of these things are gonna tie back until he's saying, "Oh, you're the kindest," whatever. But people change as they grow older, and I think this is a very tempered view to have. What if those kids were some secret, stupid, pull up Thule out and popped her? I really don't think this was a crazy thought for him to have, honestly.
Weird that Oda even did this. This is a confusing look from the man who is later going to be wanked for how kind he is.
See, I knew it.
Nami refuses Sanji and then makes a stand, which forces the Straw Hats into action and prompts a cheesy line of dialogue from Sanji, which once again reinforces his simp-like attitude. Sanji
Beta!
and Frankie stay back to deal with the guards, and this group further splits so that Nami and Chopper can lead the children away. Luffy's group has been contacted by Brook, who informs them of what is going on while taking a walk around on the cold side of Punk Hazard. Luffy and the gang beat up some centaurs, and Smoker reveals that Punk Hazard is the location for the off-screen fight between Aokiji and Akainu.
I was okay.
A
I'm
fight
okay
so
with this
great
off
that it
screen.
permanently changed the island's weather,
okay with this
which
off
is a great idea in terms of creativity from Oda. Luffy's group decides to cross the river to go save the crew and are attacked by a group of centaurs, so they are distracted for a bit. Brook ends up having a quick engagement with Kinemon's torso, but ends up running away from it. The big attention grabber for this portion of the arc is Law being reintroduced through his meeting with Smoker.
I was so mad at his
We get
hat
to see his new design
originally.
and impressive status as a warlord. The most interesting players in this arc, the people that everyone comes back for when discussing it, are Law, Smoker, Virgo, and then in the last few chapters, Dofi and Aokiji. They really give the arc a much needed...
I like Caesar's role in this arc.
Anytime these characters are at
I like
the
Monet.
forefront, it's a good time. I can't say the same thing about anything else, though, including the main characters. Not a good look. After Law's introduction, Nami and company are still running around. They get some
We need
background
more
information
Frankie
on
and
the
Sanji
children's
tag team. We called
circumstances,
out Sanji, but
and then they
everyone
end
had
up
something
in
to
the
say
freezer
about it.
room,
Sanji
which
just put
is
his
a
foot down
room
and
that
said
depicts
no.
convicts and
Blah,
other
blah.
giants being frozen in
Nami
ice.
is decent.
This is the only thing that happens as a result of their separation from Frankie and Sanji, which seems a bit of a waste because this didn't change how anything plays out in the arc, so I'm not sure why Oda decided to do this. Sanji has another conversation with Kinemon in which he is trying to make Kinemon drop his pride so that he can ask for help, but Kinemon is too stubborn to do so. So for the second time, Sanji has a relatively nice conversation with Kinemon, which brings them a bit closer in theory. As Law and Smoker are talking,
I think earlier, Glam, if I'm wrong on this, just correct me. I think earlier he mentioned that he thought the Sanji and Kinemon dynamic would have gone somewhere and gone further. I initially probably just thought that they were bonding based off their perversion. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the reason why they were together. I didn't necessarily think it was going to be some long-lasting camaraderie that will go. I don't know. That seems like a stretch to me. But if I misremembered that point, my bad.
Nami's group, now completely back together because Sanji and Frankie met up with them, crash the conversation, make a scene, and then run back inside.
I forgot
this
Virgo
comedy
was
scene
this. How you
works
forget when
because
Prototype
it
Virgo, your
contrasts very
favorite
well when
YouTuber.
paired up with Law and Smoker's serious attitude. Law's commentary on being equally as confused as Smoker is the cherry on top. The appearance of the Straw Hats makes Tashigi want to give chase, but just as she is about to engage, Law is forced into action and uses his room. This is the beginning phase of Law versus Smoker.
Dude,
The story then goes back to Luffy's group, who is still fighting the Centaurs. Brownbeard is introduced, Zoro is attacked by a shark and is seemingly bitten while underwater, but there's no injury to show from it. Okay. Brook randomly stops by and distracts the Centaurs long enough to introduce
that shark's teeth not strong
this
enough to
sequence is
pierce
9 pages
skin,
in length,
baby.
which is probably a bit much, but
If
the
not
story
for Kinemon,
transitions
those
back
kids
to
would
the
have
topic
died of
interest,
frostbite.
which is
Sanji
Law
had a
versus
point, just
Smoker,
saying.
so it's not a big deal. As the Straw Hats are in the process of running back inside the lab away from Smoker and Law, Oda introduces Law's personality transplant. Having reread the arc and gone through the details, I still don't know why Law did this.
That's young. That made sense to me, but you have to understand with a lot of these situations, you can't do the work for Oda. If he doesn't make that obvious in the narrative, Dritz is not going to use it as a point to be like, you see? Yeah, you have to make that obvious through the artistry and or text.
Law states that he can't let the Straw Hats get away, but the personality transplant doesn't do anything to stop them from getting away. They run off regardless, and Law ignores them despite having pretended to care about stopping them. Why pretend to care if it doesn't affect your actions? But, you know, the transplant is introduced as an excuse for Oda to do the body swapping gags he does with the Straw Hats, a sequence which lasts 27 chapters. In hindsight, there are a whole lot of negatives associated with Oda's decision to do this. Two of which are that it affects character logic and it becomes a power scaling issue. Law's personality transplant, in the way that the audience sees him use it, is a ridiculously overpowered move that could leave a very strong fighter stranded and helpless. It seems almost instantaneous, which isn't to say that you can't guard against it, but in principle, it's a guaranteed win if you can pull it off. If Law were an arc-specific character where his importance doesn't go past where he's introduced, then this wouldn't be as much of an issue because there are plenty of characters like that within the story.
It has always been strange to me that he hasn't done it
from
again.
Punk Hazard to the current moment that I'm saying this line. Law plays a role in Dovi's downfall and in the Yonko situation for Wano. Introducing this ability to Law's repertoire of ridiculously overpowered abilities creates unrealistic strategies in the future for defeating opponents. What you introduce in a character when it comes to their capabilities should be important and carefully considered. If you ignore a character's capabilities, then when something does happen with that character that doesn't take into account what they can do, the end result can be unsatisfying. What if Law snuck in a personality transplant on Dofi or Kaido while their back was turned, just like the Straw Hats?
Can't do with Kaido because at that point we had learned about he couldn't even move them because their haki was so strong. Now it's not clear to me if you could just do that if your haki is generally way better, or if this is specific to Conqueror's haki, but he couldn't do it to Kaido.
Would end the arcs immediately because the villains would lose right away, right? All authors like to have fun whenever they are drawing. Oda isn't the first, and he won't be the last person to introduce something
Technically,
like this.
Lakuno to Dofi.
But
That's
doesn't
fair.
mean
I
it should
didn't.
continue to happen.
I specified
Ideally, you want to
Kaido
create
and
things
Big
that
Mom.
work
Well,
within
Big
the
Mom and
logic of
Kaido.
your
But
own
yeah,
world,
I'm not saying
and
Dofi.
don't break it. Simple enough.
I didn't think about it, but it is odd that he's never used that technique ever again. But I would argue Oda probably realized how overpowered it could be, but that's not an excuse.
And we'll see later in Wano that Oda tries to introduce something that fails to take this into account. Back to the story at hand though. Smoker engages Law and Oda treats us to a fun battle between two very well-liked characters. Tashigi, who is observing the fight, challenges Law and just W keys right at him, despite Smoker's warning to stay away because she's too weak. Law proceeds to one-shot Tashigi, cutting her sword and body in half with his Devil Fruit ability.
Weaklings don't get to pick their way
Tashigi
of death,
is
manner of
humiliated in front of Law. Law exposes her for being weak and tells her, "The weak do not have the right to choose how they die." A badass line. This line is shown to create a severe response in Tashigi. I wonder how this will impact her throughout the arc. Tashigi is saved by Smoker, and the fight between them carries on until Law defeats Smoker and takes his heart.
That shit was so
just
gas.
in time for Luffy to show up. Smoker versus Law is a short but great fight that highlights what someone like Law is capable of doing, putting Smoker in one of the only disadvantageous situations we've ever seen in the series when it comes to combat. I personally enjoyed the short talk afterwards between Luffy and Law. Seeing things from the perspective and mindset of Law allows for a fun time and creates a game of trying to figure out what Law is really thinking and what his motives are. During this talk, Tashigi
that's Luffy's number 2 subordinate.
Calls over to check on Smoker, gets enraged, and once again tries to attack Law. Oda, for the second time, has Law use the personality transplant on Tashigi and Smoker, swapping them up. Law tells Luffy where to find his crew and leaves. Then the scene switches over to Nami's group, where Sanji is perving on Nami's body because he got swapped into
I disagree with that.
Kinemon uses his ability
Actually,
to make
no,
close
because Smoker does know about the ability to some degree. But this arc lowered Smoker's value in a lot of people's eyes. It didn't lower it or make it higher to me. He stayed the same to me, but that's just my viewpoint.
For everyone in the cold. And afterwards, Sanji continues to perv on Nami's body, opening the coat to stare at her boobs, which is immediately followed by
Why
Sanji
wouldn't he
going
do
for a
that?
slip,
I would do that.
Which is then followed by Sanji
I might have to go flick the
molesting
bean like
Nami's body
Jolene,
with
chapter 1, Stone Ocean, baby. Let's get it.
So yeah. At this point, we gotta have a talk about Sanji. I'll be up front. People who know me know this well. My least favorite character in the entire series of One Piece is by far Sanji. So when I talk about things that I consider problems, I'm trying to draw the line between what I think are issues within the story and my own preferences and what I enjoy in characters. In other words, when I'm talking about Sanji here, I am trying to be unbiased. I know that when Oda was creating the scene, his intent was to make a funny gag, and I'm sure that many people found the scene to be funny and are going to think that any commentary on this is purely subjective, which is very, very ironic and wrong. Because if I were someone thinking of what was in the best interest for Sanji's character, this is not a scene I would ever hope to see. This scene is distasteful in the sense that it paints Sanji as a sexual predator who doesn't care or respect women. Someone that is no better than Absalom, and arguably even worse. Absalom at least didn't pretend to be a white knight whose primary concern is the safety and respect of women. Sanji does. Sanji has a long-running gag that goes back to his first introduction at Baratie for being a womanizer. But nothing like this has ever happened before. For the first time, Sanji was given full control of a woman's body, leaving it up to him how he would act. And the result is that Sanji uses Nami to satisfy his own lust with no regard for human life.
Now they switch, and here's Pierce again. A Smith screen. Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Sanji ends up sexually assaulting Nami. Oda tries to fool the audience into believing that Sanji cares about Nami's body, but Oda completely misses the issue of character morality. Sanji only cares about Nami's body when it's going to be in physical danger,
not when it's at the danger of his own desire.
Oh my god, this SJW point is not moving me, bro. It's not moving me. Oh my god, this long?
This doesn't do Sanji's character any good. Some may like to use the defense of it's just a gag, but within every gag is intent, and that intent reflects upon the character, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally done by the author. I think something that occurs far too often in the Western audience is that whenever they see an out-of-touch Eastern
this
gag,
fan service point
they
is
try
not,
to justify it by any means possible, even if they have to bend backwards until their back breaks. Culture.
I'm not even saying he's wrong.
And what's more,
it's just a waste of time.
Sanji's real ideology is linked to his character gag, which is why it's something that makes Sanji a hypocrite. Hiding behind the ruse of a gag doesn't mean that an author shouldn't make sure that their writing doesn't come at the cost of what the characters are supposed to think is important. This is not an example of Mr. Prince. This is Mr. Cosby. This pervy situation isn't exclusive to Sanji and Nami.
I'm not saying he's wrong, but
it also occurs with Smoker.
It's such a kind of like fan service does so much more beyond what it does in the story because it attracts. Like he even speaks about people himself starting an entire series because he saw a bad bitch. You know, people have watched One Piece because they saw Nami. Oh, she bad. I don't know what she's about. Whether or not they ended up caring about it in the long run, like fan service is also a marketing tool. It goes beyond the scope of the story itself. Like it's these things where like North Americans come on their high horse and like shut up, oh, give it a rest. Like I'm just so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. He's not wrong.
Their bodies, and when we get back to them, Smoker has opened up Tashigi's shirt, which reveals part of her body.
Because even Chopper, his cuteness is a marketing tool.
The Sanji
like
and Nami situation compared to the Smoker and Tashigi one.
Whatever, bro.
And the difference is in the fact that Smoker isn't acting out of lust or disrespect. Smoker is just being himself and trying to get comfortable in the way that he normally does, which involves wearing shirts and jackets opened from the front. He's inconsiderate because Tashigi rightfully gets embarrassed, but it's done with a lot more tact and a lot more taste than Sanji is. This is better written fan service than the poor excuse for what Oda's doing. In Punk Hazard, Sanji teeters between being horrid, such as with his gags and Nami's body and his Michael Jordan cosplay, yet while at the same time giving a sort of intrigue due to his conversations with Kinemon.
I feel like Oda really could have salvaged something with these Smoker point is not moving
and the end result isn't pretty for Sanji. Your characters shouldn't be getting absolutely lambasted because of your desires for fan service. Part of me can't help but think something changed in the way that Oda sees Sanji as a character between the pre and post time skip. Starting from Fishman Island and moving forward, there are incredibly mixed signals that come from Oda's writing and his own mouth in regards to Sanji. Over the course of this series, you'll see that Sanji slowly changes into a punching bag. The positive between the Smoker and Tashigi section, though, is that they have an interesting conversation about the kidnapping of children and the possibility that there may be a traitor in G5, which, as we know, obviously ends up being Virgo later. Kinemon, who has now combined his head with his legs, has run off in the blizzard in search of his torso. Sanji once again feels responsible and asks Luffy for permission to leave, so here we go. Alluding to the Yeti Cool Brothers.
I don't care about this point, bro. I'm gonna move on to the Bon Clay thing.
Quote unquote, killing them. Authors and Oda need to stop doing this. It doesn't work and it never will. In chapter 666,
the Dabble.
Ironic.
With the cover story series From the Decks of the New World, Bon Clay is revealed to be alive and is the new queen of level 5.5 in Impel Down.
Exactly, big man thing on
Saikyo Okama way Saikyo Okama way.
This has nothing to do with the plot of Punk Hazard, but it's something that I want to take the time to talk about for a second, because there is a conversation to be had when it comes to death in One Piece and the consequences of toying with its writing. Bon Clay had one of the most memorable moments and emotional sacrifices in the story. His presence within Impel Down is
6
so strong
hours to
that it
complain
caused
about
many
2D
fans to
Check my
fall in
Twitter.
love with his character, myself included.
Hold on.
In every sense of the word, Bon Clay feels like a Straw Hat.
Oh, wait, your Twitter
I
is just
have a
titty.
closer
They fear the
connection
anime
to
titty.
Bon Clay and his dynamic with Luffy than I do several of the Straw Hats. Bon Clay stayed behind so that Luffy and company could carry on towards Marineford, all for a chance at rescuing Ace, which makes it bittersweet because, as we know, at the end of the day, Luffy fails and Ace dies anyway. Marineford is the arc that made One Piece. A vast majority of the current fanbase didn't catch up to One Piece until long after the time skip, and most people, when they are in the process of catching up, watch the anime first and then switch over to the manga for the weekly format. The story is now in Wano. If you caught up to the story recently and didn't go back to reread the manga and check out all of the cover stories, you would never even know that Bon Clay is alive. Anime onlys are completely ignorant to this, and for good reason. Most people would assume that Bon Clay was killed by Magellan because the circumstances that he was left in weren't pretty.
Wait till Moria appears with
Let's
white
go back
beard
in
and
time
eight
to
zombies.
recap and you'll understand. Bon Clay impersonates Magellan with his Devil Fruit ability in order to open the gates so that Luffy can escape. Because he was an authority figure, people didn't question his confusing and contradicting orders in the situation that they were in. Once the real Magellan realized that something went wrong, he charged back into the communications room and encountered Bon Clay. Throughout Impel Down, Magellan shows that he doesn't care about the well-being of the prisoners who are there. He has poisoned numerous allies and foes alike, leaving them there to suffer the...
Imagine you're in your cell, you just chilling, you know what I'm saying? You don't know. I don't know what jail niggas do. Work out, beat they meat, I don't know. Fuck each other in the ass. And some dickhead beside you does some shit to piss this nigga off so you get poisoned as a result. I'd hate it there.
Fate of his poison. He poisoned Luffy and then threw him into the cold to die. And Luffy only survived because of Ivankov and a miracle. Magellan is the judge, jury, and executioner. That's the kind of power he has as the head warden. Magellan, enraged at Bon Clay for letting the prisoners go and ruining the reputation of Impel Down, asks if Bon Clay has any last words.
I'm not even like getting on him about it. It's just like it's hard. I like the easy way for me to explain to you, Glam, is I don't fucking care. I just don't care whether he's right, wrong. I don't care. Titty out. I'm trying to see it. Okay. All right.
For Magellan to spare Bon Clay's life. Yet, here he is in the cover story, somehow surviving the situation without the help of Ivankov, which Luffy was fortunate enough to have. And not only did Bon Clay survive, he managed to escape to the safest area in Impel Down, an area which the guards don't know exists.
It's very likely that Blackbeard came for revenge and jumped this guy with Shitty around this time.
Surely would have poisoned him, and at the very least left him for dead with no hope of survival, bar Magellan's mercy, and since Ivankov wasn't there, basically means death. This spits in the face of Bon Clay's sacrifice in more ways than one. It's one thing for Bon Clay to have survived the situation because there is probably some way that can be written into the story. But it's a completely different matter to reveal him being alive in a fucking cover story. That is incredibly insensitive. Bon Clay should at the very least be involved in a future plot point that reveals his fate in a satisfying way. This is the opposite of satisfying. It's jarring.
I can agree with that.
Things like this that have made
I've always been super cognizant of the cover story, so I see them as important. But I hear
resulting in the questioning of every single character death that
seemingly
happens. Pell surviving the nuke that wiped Megaton off the map in Fallout 3 was awful.
See, what Drax fails to realize is that Pell is actually from the New World, and this is Emu Samurai, right? So what he did was he conquer hockeyed up and he armored hockeyed up, you know what I'm saying, right? And he actually used Future Sight to actually get away from the explosions. I'm joking. Let me stop.
Everyone knows this, and it's one of the biggest faults in Alabasta. There is no defending it.
I will only say this thing about Oda. I do think Oda has a very bad job with character deaths in the present time. I think the flashbacks and stuff we get is fine. His parents have died. I do think that his choice to let Ace and Whitebeard be the first two major significant present time death is very powerful. That's all.
That narrative was written into the story. Pell was shown on screen to have survived and then come back.
If we're at it
Bon
only,
Clay,
you wouldn't know
a way more relevant character than Pell could ever be, didn't even get the same luxury as a bird. How can the audience believe in consequences and the importance of character relationships when things like this?
Forgot where I read this, but online folk thought Bon Clay was.
It's because of stuff like this that people still think Monet, Virgo, and Pedro are still alive. If you are an aspiring author, take note to never craft an element like this within your story.
I love Ben.
Even if you hate killing people, it's better to write it out in a different way than to gloss over it like this. This is horrible. Oda himself or his editors should have easily spotted the issue with doing this, yet that did not happen. Back to current.
I get why this scene is very frustrating. Because you ever have a scene in a game or something that you really, really like, and it leaves this powerful moment because maybe a character's death or sacrifice or something meant something, then something later, because of maybe retroactive continuity or something along those lines, it completely messes with the symbolic and meaning of that scene. Reminds me of Aqua in the Realm of Darkness talking to Diz, Darkness and Zero, obviously Ansem the Wise and whatnot, and in the Dark Margin, and then learning about what's been happening outside the world for a little bit, and you learn about Sora and whatnot. And then later on in 2.8, she fucking saw Riku. Mickey came, it's like, oh, it ruins that. That's such a great scene that's ruined by the addition. So I feel him here, man.
Brownbeard is giving Nami and Usopp a long speech about how effective the Yeti Cool Brothers are as assassins, when Scotch shows up out of the blue to kill Brownbeard at the orders of Caesar Clown. Oda does this thing within Punk Hazard where he has Brownbeard and Caesar's subordinates act extraordinarily stupid in refusing to believe that Caesar is a bad guy, even when they are presented with irrefutable evidence, and they just sit there and pretend like what they're hearing is wrong and just ugly cry the entire time. I'm going to assume this was Oda's way of trying to humanize and make the audience care about Brownbeard and the guards, but I don't think it works at all. Brownbeard as a character comes off as more of a waste of space than he does a neat addition to the arc. Every single time that the arc transitions from interesting characters like Law, Virgo, and Smoker,
we all knew that.
We all knew that. Or Brownbeard talk and cry about Caesar, it's just a low point, dude. Oda would have had a better shot at trying to incorporate Brownbeard into a character dynamic with one of the Straw Hats. Think back to how Toto, the old man in Alabasta, was used in conjunction with Luffy. That is a great moment in Alabasta when he helps Luffy and Luffy helps him and then gives Luffy water, which ends up saving Luffy's life against Crocodile.
Hold on, didn't you get mad at the water he spat out, reviving him? Come on, dog. Come on. Continuity. I'm paying attention, Dritz. I'm on your ass. I'm kidding.
That is infinitely more satisfying, and we care way more about Toto than these stupid fodder. As it stands, when Oda forcibly separates screen time away from people that matter
I remember that Brownbeard is there. Do I give a damn? No.
It can make the arc go down in quality. Scotch ends up shooting Brownbeard point blank in the face with his large rifle, and then Brownbeard goes down.
I do have to say this though. What kind of hurts me with some of the Oda pump fake deaths is that it looks so. Do you find that sometimes the impact of a punch or stab or explosion looks so fucking brutal? And then they're fine. Like sometimes it's I'm like, yo, that nigga he punched the fucking pupils out of his eyes. And then I don't know, I get it though.
The Yeti Cool Brothers capture Nami and run off.
Brownbeard's an Uber?
This is the second time that she's been captured this arc. Man, the post-time skip is definitely changing the formula up with the weaklings on the crew, man. This sets up the eventual meeting between Luffy and Law. Overall, I don't think the Yeti Cool Brothers are even a bad addition to Punk Hazard. Within the community, they are often memed, usually as material to slander Zoro, but I can't say they didn't have potential. They have better designs than Brownbeard and fare well for themselves, they really only come off as a bit weird because they are hyped up by Brownbeard as being a threat, and then Oda tries to trick the audience into believing that they actually defeated Zoro and Sanji. But the big blech is that Brownbeard is the one who hyped these guys up, right? As hitmen. Yet Brownbeard later on is revealed to have survived a point-blank assassination shot from their rifles.
If Pedro
After
was
this,
alive, I
Law
wouldn't be
shows up,
surprised. In all
defeats
honesty,
the last
I
Yeti
would
Cool
hate
Brother
it.
and has an iconic conversation with Luffy, where an alliance is created between the Supernova to take down
A
an
bunch of
Emperor.
niggas would die,
If you
only
go back to
Luffy
the
would
character
be-
dream portion of this video, you'll notice that I inserted a character motivation criticism of this moment, so I'm not going to go over it again here. Luffy and Law walk back and meet up with the rest of the crew. Law switches the Straw Hats' bodies back into their normal selves, except for Nami and Sanji, because Sanji isn't there. Obviously, Oda hasn't had enough of the pervy gags. Awesome. Woo! There is some genuinely funny stuff going on with the gang memeing Law, informing him of how Luffy sees stuff and tying Chopper to his head. Once again, this comedy comes off really well because it contrasts with Law, who was the real focal point of the comedy. Law and Chopper then team up to find a way to save the kid.
I love how
which is
Law
cool
was
because
carrying
Law
him
and
like
Chopper-
that, by the way. I don't know what it is. A small detail. I just loved it. It was almost like it gave that little wrapper around his like scabbard or sheath, like
For a
sense.
doctor's,
I
that
like
had
that.
potential.
Small
This
thing,
scene
small
then
thing.
transitions and surprise.
Henny Cool Brothers, yes
Zoro,
sir.
Sanji, and Brook are revealed to still be alive and didn't die
Sanji
from the
would
Yeti
die in
Cool
a water
Brothers.
tower with a hole in his chest.
They are
Morgan
able
and
to
Yeti
find
Cool Brothers,
Kinemon
huge for
buried
most
in the
slender
snow,
and
learning that the
smart.
rest of his body is trapped in the lake. Sanji once again
Merch Master
takes
Chop.
responsibility for this. This is like the third or fourth time that Oda's done this. Luffy launches the Straw Hats over to where Tashigi and Smoker are. Tashigi, in Smoker's body, tries to fight and apprehend Luffy because she actually thinks this would work. Incredibly smart woman here, fellas. She is barely able to throw out a punch in Smoker's Logia body, and as you would imagine, ends up being easily subdued by Luffy. Luffy refers to Tashigi as weak, which goes along with Smoker's earlier comment on the limitations and regret of not having his own body. This is all a dig at Tashigi. Smoker, inside of Tashigi's body, is so weak and so slow that he can't even keep up with Luffy in Gear 2nd. Being called weak is once again shown to bother Tashigi. So
I'm not sure where he's going with the Tashigi point, but I do think that when he mentioned that power scaling thing, he's gonna mention probably when Sanji and Nami's body uses the blue walk underwater. I'm pretty sure he's gonna touch on that at some point. Because I know a lot of people found that moment weird.
if you are keeping track, Tashigi has been called out numerous times for how much she sucks. Makes you wonder what the point is, right? Keep this in mind, it's building up to more. Caesar makes his appearance in front of Luffy and Smoker and begins to offer one of his many generic, over-the-top villain speeches. Thankfully, Luffy interrupts him and shows his ability to grab a Logia, which Robin specifically comments on due to the power of armament Haki, which demonstrates that Robin is aware of what Haki can do, but doesn't possess it herself. I wonder what she
I knew he was going there. Sorry, I saw it
was
coming.
doing during
I
his
saw a
2
frame
years in
ahead.
the Revolutionary Army. Luffy begins to have a short scuffle with Caesar, and Oda reiterates that poison doesn't really work on Luffy. Good to know. Caesar, from the beginning of this encounter, was a bit on the back foot, but Luffy makes a rookie mistake and underestimates Caesar, causing him to be knocked unconscious. And because Luffy is down, Caesar goes to attack everyone else, and he just decimates them. He fodderizes Smoker, Tashigi, Frankie, and Robin off screen. And so for the third time, Straw Hats get captured in the arc. Prior to this event, there is a conversation between Luffy and Law about capturing Caesar, and Luffy comments on the fact that only himself, Zoro, and Sanji have Haki in the crew, meaning that no one else has it, except for Usopp, who unlocks it later.
You
in
see,
Dressrosa.
I can't stand
When you
Jiraiya
first get to
Jiraiya
this
and
point in
Roshi.
Punk
I
Hazard,
like Sanji.
It's normal to accept this and look no further.
That's
The
not
best
true.
fighters in the crew have
I don't
Haki.
really care
Yeah,
for
that makes sense,
Jiraiya.
sure.
I'm probably
However, as you get deeper
a slight
into the
negative
new
on
world,
Roshi. I don't
the
know.
fact that the rest of the Straw Hats don't have Haki becomes more questionable in nature. And the reason that's the case
Gangster
is because it's
Gastino?
revealed that virtually everyone and their mama has Haki. It is a basic power system that everyone is capable of.
Yo, did y'all see Batman? Did you see Bruce Wayne? Yo, Bruce Wayne was letting them arrows fly. Did you see my nigga Bruce? Bruce Wayne? Yes, sir. I'm vengeance. I'm vengeance, nigga.
Water and random people
Wayne D.
possessing
Bruce.
numerous
Let's
variants
go.
of hockey, and then you look back at the Straw Hats not even knowing the basics over the course of 2 years of training and
vengeance.
several arcs of screen time, it
Where's
makes you
the
wonder
nigger?
why that's
What?
the case. Hockey is something that you may argue isn't necessary
That was
if you
hacked,
have
bro.
the right skills
That
to
wasn't
work
me.
around, and I agree with that mindset. But then you see stuff like Caesar easily defeating all of the main characters without them even using their smarts to try and work around the fact that they don't have hockey. Furthermore, during this engagement with Caesar, Sanji is shown successfully jumping into the cold water, locating Kinnemon's body with observation hockey that he's unlocked in Nami's body, as well as using Skywalk to get out in time before the gas corners him. This is basically the last thing that happens while Sanji is inside Nami's body. Nothing useful or interesting comes as a result of this personality transplant. The biggest utility that you could probably argue is that it's a plot device in order to slightly nerf Sanji for his upcoming battle against Virgo, even though Usopp tanked the same damage and seemed absolutely fine. There is an oddity here that perhaps is something that Oda
Wow,
dropped
what
heading
did I
further
do,
into the
man?
story, and it is a
He's a
damn
technician?
shame.
You
As I
think
just said,
he did some?
Sanji uses observation hockey and Skywalk in Nami's body, showing that her body is capable of performing those tasks, which may lead some people to believe that she's capable of much more. Seems realistic, but it doesn't go anywhere. And this relates back to why I question the trajectory of Oda's thought process and not having the Straw Hats get hockey. Why show what Nami's body is capable of doing with the right knowledge and technique if you're not going to do anything with it? I don't know. After Sanji gets Kinnemon's body back, we see Kinnemon's first
Yo,
usage
chill
of
out,
fire
bro.
cutting. And Law by this point has snuck
just get
into
tired
a
of the
lab with
nosebleeds, that's
Chopper
totally fair.
and has been confronted by Virgo, who just happens to have his heart. Virgo commands an interesting screen presence and is engaging throughout all of his screen time. This is a good use of an obstacle-like, one-dimensional character. Virgo ticks off much of what we talked about in Fishman Island. There is a transition after this to a different island in the New World to show Commodore Yarisugi from G5 being a dick to the parents of the kidnapped children, and then he says some generic evil guy stuff. The purpose of this inclusion is to make Virgo out to be the criminal
Actually,
and to
Virgo.
show the parents suffering at the hands of the corrupt Marines, but I would say that this section could have been left out entirely and it wouldn't have changed anything. It's made quite obvious through the story that Virgo is the traitor, and there is more utility from Tashigi's flashback of Zoro than there is of showing Baddie McBad Guy here being a dick. This might have worked better if the child subplot was even the slightest bit more engaging, because as you'll find, not a whole lot really happens.
That
with
dude
the
just like a
children
JoJo
of Hazard,
character,
but Oda just like
but he don't have a
included this
fabulous
to make it more
midriff
obvious.
though.
Law reveals that the alias of Joker belongs to none other than Dofi, which is an interesting reveal that starts to tie things together within this arc. Nami and Usopp, who are still chilling in the general area
Question:
with
why doesn't
the
Robin
sedated
have
children,
Haki yet?
encounter Caesar
Should
Clown,
be almost broken.
who corners them and is about to finish them off.
Haki
when,
is easily one of my
surprise,
biggest problems in
surprise,
One Piece. I'm not even in the
Brownbeard
mood to
shows
talk
up
about this
alive
right now.
and makes a
Get
couple
into it.
attempts to hit Caesar, but ultimately just gets folded like an old wallet.
already-
Nami yells at Caesar, but her and Usopp end up being defeated anyway, showing that they are no match for the would-be antagonist. Woo. Caesar, after defeating them, just leaves them on the ground for some reason and just walks away. I guess he didn't want to kill them. He's probably too focused on getting back to his computer to start his Twitch stream. One of the viewers of his Twitch stream ends up being none other than Eustace Captain Kidd, which is an exciting reveal at this time. Kidd is one of the more anticipated supernova due to the attention that he received in Sabaody. Even more exciting, Kidd and Killer have held a meeting to team up with Hawkins and Apu, so the supernova are coming to the forefront.
The Magician. Bajou Hawkins.
Here. The purpose of Caesar's stream, though, is to turn Smiley into Shinokuni, and during
Robin
the
doesn't have
entire
Hawkins 'cause he's not
process,
meant to be a fighter. Caesar's a
oh
runaway. I'm
jeez,
so
oh
upset
Lord
he
help,
called
there
Twitch
are
stream.
lots and lots
because
of
people don't
panels
talk to each
of
other
just
online. Well,
the
is that
Straw Hats
Smoothie?
running.
Hawkins fans
I
see?
can't emphasize
The Magician. Bajou Hawkins. A Wanabite sword. Are you? My God. That's my guy. Go, Mono Soul. That's my guy.
Is that enough? It is absurd how much running and nothing
He's my favorite
Sanji's
Supernova
group
that was
does
introduced
during
in
this part of the
Sabaody.
arc. The pacing just takes a complete nosedive, and I don't know why Oda chose to go through this path. It is, oh, jeez. Smiley does end up turning into Shinokuni, and Sanji's group's
Really
next
now?
function is to run away from the gas that shows up as a result. Luffy, having been captured and defeated, is watching the Twitch stream showing Sanji's group
it was
running,
going so well,
and he
too.
sees that his
Come on,
crew is in
Cameron.
danger,
You
and
cooperated,
he can't
B.
do anything about it to help them. Perhaps that could have been a consequence to his overconfidence with Caesar. But before Luffy can even begin to let the reality of his arrogance settle in, Law counteracts the situation. Caesar moved the cage with all of the captured individuals to the outside of the lab, intending to have them die by Shinokuni. Frankie makes a quick smokescreen for the group to let Law operate, and Law frees everyone. Law claims that since he's been at Punk Hazard for months, he had planned ahead for the possibility of being captured, sneaking and placing a few normal handcuffs around the lab. This is the explanation given, and I'm not really sure how it's supposed to make a whole lot of sense given what Oda showed. Law was captured and subdued by Virgo. Law had no way of knowing which set of chains Virgo was going to use to bind him, let alone the rest of the Straw Hats. And there would be no way for him to use his ability while being cuffed by Virgo without Virgo knowing, because Virgo knows what Law can do. Law also ended up being the only person out of everyone chained to have fake handcuffs. Man, Hearthstone players wish they had that type of RNG. But let's transition back to Sanji's group. What are they doing? Are they still running? Yes.
That's contrived.
Yes, they are.
That's contrived.
And they are chasing a dragon that was outside so they can ride it to safety. Sanji catches this dragon by getting a speed boost
Camera
from
freezing on
molesting
having
Nami's
fun,
boobies.
right? Hawkins
Woo!
wants to be in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Don't
so
you get
badly,
it?
Too easy for him.
It's funny because he grabbed her boobs. Silly Sanji. Nami's group is also running from the smoke, and all of the parties converge at the same location in the lab. Everyone has little tasks that they are assigned. Everyone's bodies are then switched back to normal at this point, ending
change
the
the argument is
transplant
true. It's
portion
really
of the arc.
convenient. Yeah, it's very
Tashigi
contrived.
wants to join Smoker in going after the traitor Virgo, but Smoker sidelines her with the responsibility of protecting the men. Law then introduces the Oda Classic, which is the timer countdown within the arc, by explaining that everyone has 2 hours to mess around before Law can
I'm
do
gonna be
anything to
very
help them out,
honest.
because
I
he plans to
never
mess the place
ever
up.
noticed the
As
timer
Luffy
thing
and
being in
Zoro's
a
group
lot
is
of
running
these
to go
arcs.
catch
I did not
Caesar
ever make that
as
connection.
part of the deal with Law,
Without him, I would have
something
never known that.
crazy happens.
Now I can unsee it.
Usopp tells Zoro that
I never
Luffy
picked that up
lost to
myself.
Caesar, which is why everyone ended up getting captured. Zoro is not happy to hear this news from Usopp. Not happy at all. Not only was Luffy defeated, but Zoro himself was duped by the Yeti Cool Brothers. This strikes a chord of frustration with Zoro, who says that this can't continue to happen. The Straw Hats as a unit cannot continue on like that. By letting things like this go unchecked, they could all die. Usopp has a lighthearted rebuttal saying that everyone turned out fine, so there's no need to worry, but Zoro says he's not joking around. Zoro then turns from Usopp.
I'm
to
not
Luffy
saying it's a
and
bad
yells
thing.
out
I'm
at
just
him.
saying that I never
And Zoro tells him
actually
to get
noticed
his
it
shit
myself.
together because this is the new world. They can afford to take things lightly. Luffy looks back at Zoro and promises that he'll be more careful from here on out, and then seems to act the opposite way from what Zoro says he should, and he goes off running around carefree.
You can't say that. A lot of times, Luffy's seriousness is interpreted for like stupidity. Like when he did Mizu Luffy, and Crocodile's like, bro, get fucking serious. He's like, bro, I am serious, and he spat the water on him. This is still a cool move, the UFO thing. He's not taking it seriously at it. So, quick point.
Which elicits a reaction from Zoro. This scene establishes, or rather, continues character continuity for Zoro. This picks up with what Zoro was preaching about back in Water 7. This isn't a pirate game. And it's probably not a coincidence either that Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp are the ones involved in this conversation. This would have been an amazing moment, and this could have made up for all the things that haven't been going the way you would expect coming out of the time skip. The Straw Hats being captured 3 times in one arc, being defeated by a gag antagonist, and fooling around. All of that could have been a part of a narrative, but it is not. The Zoro continuity is made more alarming because
You're right.
what happens
I was
with
gonna
Zoro
bring
later
up
in
the
this
Gear
very
4th
arc,
point with Dofi.
as he goes
too.
against his
Then he's
own
like, why the
words, he
fuck
doesn't
am I
take
in the
things super
plaza?
seriously. There are a few scene transitions after this, and Virgo decides to take matters into his own hands. The Straw Hats are still shown to be running around. Chopper figures out the drug
I don't know
off screen,
anyone who slanders
and
One Piece. I
Tashigi runs
just
into
wait.
Zoro
I
real
don't
quick and clashes with
know
him,
anyone who
basically
slanders
just
One
to
Piece.
get
I
his
just
attention and
feel
say, hey, what's up? Which is a
isn't
nice
really
moment. I like
looking
that.
at the damn
It's picking up
story.
on a character relationship. But then,
Not
part
fuck.
of the
Not
lab
them.
wall is destroyed, which starts bringing in gas at an increased
At the end of the day,
rate.
this is just one man's
Tashigi,
opinion.
in
I
her
don't think
weak,
it
pathetic
doesn't have to be that
girly
big a deal.
body, isn't fast enough to avoid and outrun the gas. Her out-of-shape men toss her to safety
Piece
and
will
end
never
up being
fail.
petrified
What's
by
up,
the
millions?
gas. And then Tashigi cries out in concern.
I think Gear 4
This
plays with
Tashigi
that
stuff is
very
leading
well,
somewhere,
actually.
right?
So do I.
Right? I wonder what the Straw Hats are up to right now. The Straw Hats are still running around. The perspective switches back to Tashigi and her men. Her men are being attacked by the mini dragon that Sanji and them got on, and for some reason Tashigi is just kinda standing around and watching. The dragon is only scared away from her men because Virgo shows up, and Virgo has an intimidating
UFO just a
atmosphere.
move. My point is that
the dragon is
I didn't
afraid
interpret
of
that
him,
as him not taking it
not
seriously.
Tashigi. Virgo then proceeds to decimate Tashigi's squad with Shagans, and it sparks a sequence of flashback from Tashigi's perspective of how nice Virgo seemed to be when she first met him, further cementing his betrayal. Tashigi then attacks Virgo and gets manhandled in a couple of panels.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
Tashigi's men then go to attack Virgo. While Tashigi lays on the ground, watching and crying, Virgo continues his onslaught. Distraught, Tashigi screams in her mind, "Save us, Smoker!" And what happens?
Vietnam
The living
flashbacks?
embodiment
Chile.
of sexism. Vince Smoke Sanji comes to save the day, saying that he heard the sound of a woman's tear falling.
My goat!
Surely,
Yes, sir!
surely this will lead somewhere.
It does. It does.
Sanji has a relatively short class with Virgo. He is able to get a
Underrated.
couple
He's
licks
really
in,
strong. I
but the
don't know
fight
that.
quickly appears to enter into Virgo's advantage. The first time that Virgo and Sanji cross legs, Sanji's leg cracks. This scene within the community is often used to discredit Sanji's fighting capabilities, and it's become sort of a meme. A meme that, admittedly, I've used numerous times. There's no way to tell how the fight would have played out if it continued, but the context of the story certainly gives a bit of an edge towards Virgo. Power scaling memes aside, there are a couple things that I'd like to comment on regarding this clash when it comes to the narrative. I made the claim earlier that I think the way that Oda views Sanji has changed when compared to the previous times in the story, and I want to use this event as another piece of evidence to that claim. If Zoro's pride is his swords, then Sanji's, outside of cooking, would be his legs in terms of fighting, right?
It's
It
the
is
fact that they
surprising
went leg
me
to leg.
that Oda would show Sanji's leg crack so easily,
But
and against someone like
I don't know if he's gonna mention this. The only reason why, in the grand scheme of things, I'm actually very okay with that interaction is because, in my opinion, in my viewpoint, Dofi's true number 2 and right hand is Virgo. It's not Trable, it's not Diamante or whatever. It's actually Virgo. So I'm okay with that.
Virgo, which, as we know, in the larger scheme of things, isn't really that strong. And remember,
I still think
all it
Sanji
took
could have won
was
that fight,
one
though.
clash for it to break. This moment is used to hype up Virgo's strength, which is fine, but it doesn't do anything at all for Sanji. Sanji's weakness here is
Sanji ends up having the problem that I used to hate that Marvel used to do a lot of the times. When they want to introduce a new threat or strong character, they'd have him beat up Thor like Hulk. For like that shock factor. The Hulk was defeated. Thor was like it's kind of tired sometimes, but yeah.
isn't used to make him stronger later on. Sanji shows up to quote-unquote save Tashigi, but they really end up getting saved by the bell. The fight only concludes because Law enters the sad room and they were being surrounded by poisonous gas, which forces Virgo to go
Dritz actually
elsewhere.
brings up the Nami point.
Once again,
with,
by
the
itself,
Nami
this
being
is
in
all
Thing's
fine,
body, by the
but
way.
it creates a compounding issue when you look at the totality
Even with the body being
of
hurt
Sanji.
before, Usopp was fine.
Was this
or
all
Galactus,
simply
yeah.
to hype up
Virgo
Virgo?
is his ace.
How
Zoro
often
did
will
lose
Oda
the
place
swords with the
Sanji
Rust
in a
guy.
negative situation
Sabi
simply
no
to
me
hype
out,
up
baby.
someone else? Well, we'll find out. Moving on, however, Virgo calls Dofi, and there is a cool introduction of Dofi and his crew. There is personality and a
Hop on the beat and then I slide. My little bitch, she bad, and she's strapped like baby 5.
abundance here, and it is much appreciated. In a different section of the lab, Luffy has begun to give Caesar the hands, not falling for his tricks this time around, and he's about to defeat Caesar when Monet intervenes, which allows Caesar to escape. Luffy destroys the ground to avoid being frozen and accidentally falls through the floor. Nami's group is still running around, and Kinemon alludes to what some of the Straw Hats' roles are going to be when they get into Wano.
It's not my
Nami
bars.
being a
Shout out to
Kunoichi,
Omar.
Robin being a cortisone.
Let's not talk about that.
Can't wait to see how that plays out, baby.
On the length since over 1,000 chapters.
Nami's
Ryuji
group
wants
rolls
stuff
up
longer
on
than
Chopper,
movies
who
and
is getting
stuff.
smacked
Some fluff.
around by the
Did you read the
rampaging
chapter or
children
a couple
while
panels
he's
at
in
least?
Monster Point.
Or what?
He's already dead.
Not my bars.
That's alright, yeah. I mean, that's not a good look. Monster Point
I don't
stuff
rap.
is just
But if you need me on the bass clarinet, I got you. I'm nice on the bass clarinet, you dig?
off screen, Law and Virgo have already begun fighting each other, and looking back on this, I don't even know what Law's plan was. He knew that Virgo had his heart, but he is completely helpless against Virgo while he has his heart. So I don't know what Law would have done if Smoker didn't show up. Law just enters the sad room, and the next thing we see is Virgo beating his ass.
Shit was
Did
so
Law
fucking
even
raw.
think about what he was going to do?
Counter
Doesn't seem like
shock.
it. He had no plan or strategy in place, which is kind of weird considering it's Law. Tashigi and Sanji start to run away together with the Marines, and I can't help but feel like there was a missed opportunity here. This is self-evident, but I'll reiterate. Tashigi's entire character is focused around the idea of disliking sexism and the idea of women getting preferential treatment simply because they are women, to the point where she was willing to complain to Zoro about not killing her. Clearly, there are some deeply rooted issues at play when it comes to Tashigi. Sanji and Tashigi haven't had a part where they've been alone up until this point in the story. They've really never interacted. I mean, outside of just, perv gags from Sanji giving googly eyes. Not only does Oda do nothing with the conflicting character aspects of Sanji and Tashigi, he doesn't even have them
this
interact
guy's issue
once.
with One Piece is that
Was
a lot
the
of what
only
he
point in
thought was
Sanji coming
gonna
to save
be
Tashigi
plot
just to give
points
Sanji a quote-unquote
didn't happen?
cool...
I don't know. I think I think a lot of viewers tend to cling to that argument because it's an easy way to discredit Grits. I do think Grits does that a lot. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think a lot of the times he comes across as frustrated that it didn't go the way that he wants. He hasn't done that too much in this video. What I do think he's done it at times, but that's not it. That's not what he's doing here. He's criticized many different aspects of it, and really and truly, he's really only started with the post time skip. He's pretty good with the pre-time skip.
Cool line of dialogue, fight for a couple panels, and then dip? Yeah, questionable.
I like Puck Hazard.
There are certain things that you remember from every arc that you read. Key moments and highlights that help form your thoughts. If you pay attention during your first read-through, perhaps you'll create even a vague outline of how the sequence of events was created to get you from point A to point B. But like many things, details will fade with time if you aren't proactively using them or thinking about them in discussion and or rereading that series. And that's the case with One Piece, and it doesn't really help that One Piece is a really long story, which makes it easier to forget things that you once remembered. I talk to people whose job is to basically read the series and make videos, and even we forget things all the time. The reason why I say this is because in order to make this video to get the most bang for my buck, I went through every post-time skip arc and reread them, took notes, and sat down to formulate my thoughts.
I had always remembered the Monet section of Punk Hazard as being hype because it had a memorable moment for Zoro. I distinctly remember Tashigi being bad in Punk Hazard, but it was only upon my reread that I saw in 4K how awful and how bad everything truly was. For Tashigi and for Zoro. And I won't lie, I got angry and disappointed in the process of rereading this arc. Let's go over what happens and perhaps you'll understand my ire. Zoro begins his fight with Monet as a means of stalling, so that Nami and Robin can lead the kids out of the biscuit room and to their eventual rescue. Zoro and Monet clash, but as they are fighting, Monet disengages and makes a dash towards Nami and Robin with the intent to kill them. Zoro is able to race over in time to defend Nami, and he asks Monet why she is only targeting the weakest links. Nami uses her climb attack on Monet and then immediately starts running with her back turned towards Monet and to the door.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Obviously, Monet just goes to attack Nami again and Zoro isn't able to protect her. Monet is about to kill Nami when she is saved by Robin. Zoro comes in and cuts a path for them to leave. As Zoro continues to fight Monet, Monet says the following: "I can't help but notice that you only defend, never attack. Why would that be?" Monet didn't believe prior to this statement that she could actually defeat Zoro, but after this statement she thinks that she has a chance. Why is that? Monet is suggesting that Zoro is going easy on her because she's a woman. Sanji and company then show up to pester Zoro in a funny scene and quickly continue on their escape path, but not before Monet is able to take a chunk out of one of Tashigi's soldiers. Due to her being distracted in doing this, Tashigi gets a surprise attack on her, which leaves a small cut. Zoro tells Tashigi that she's in his way and that she should leave, but Tashigi refuses to budge. Zoro threatens to cut her down if she doesn't listen, and Tashigi responds saying that Zoro can't cut her down, or Monet. Monet, sitting in the corner, says, "I thought so." Tashigi remembers her encounter with Zoro in Logtown, where Zoro refused to cut her down.
Hey, y'all.
She had asked Zoro if he refused to cut her down because she was a woman, and Zoro at the time said that it wasn't the fact that she was a woman, it was because she looked exactly like Kuwena and said the same things Kuwena did. After remembering this encounter, Tashigi tells Zoro, "You think women are weak, and so you fight carelessly. Even though you won't lose without delivering the finished blow, you won't win either." Zoro doesn't deny anything that Tashigi says here, and in fact confirms it later on when he finally steps in against Monet. Do you understand what this means? This fight recontextualizes everything that we know about Zoro's ideology and his flashback. Zoro holds back against women because he views them as being inferior to men, regardless of their allegiance. And it also means that he lied to Tashigi back at Logtown. Instead of Zoro being weirded out by how much Tashigi reminded him of Kuwena, he held back because she was a woman. And that isn't to say that...
This is a reach. This is a reach bad. Yeah, this comes across as a reach to me. Let me finish this part first.
The Kuwena thing didn't play a role, but Punk Hazard changes the primary factor of the scene to be gender related. This also confirms what I always thought to be an out of character moment for Zoro during Skypiea. Something that I thought Oda just threw in order for him to sound cool. What am I talking about?
What we do.
Eneru thinking Robin, him catching her and going, she's a woman, and then Eneru says, "I'm aware of that." Okay, so my problem with this part of what he's saying is that I guess two things. What's the problem, which I think he'll elaborate on, so I'll give him a chance for that. And if it's been consistent for a while, I'm not sure what he's complaining about. At the end of the day, we are physically way more capable than women. That's not a lie. So from a physical standpoint, they are inferior to us. We're bigger, faster, and stronger on average. That's just biology. So I don't even have a problem with that, with him doing that. And a lot of men are like that. They don't like to. They're even if they're not taught that way, they don't like to go hard and beat up women. We're like that. I don't hit girls. It's really like I could understand that. You know what I'm saying? It is interesting though when you think about it and you frame it in terms of with him and Sanji. But I think Zoro ends up doing enough with the Monet thing. But we'll let him keep going. We'll let him keep going. I want to see why he says it's not a good thing. Like, why does that fucking matter?
Let's go back.
その条件を使えばうまく俺を出し抜けるとでも考えたのか浅はかなり俺は打算的な女が嫌いでね
See, that looks brutal. And to me, this scene also has a bit of more relevance to the fact that Zoro was the one that never really accepted Robin off rip the way everyone else was, and he's the one who basically went to do that catch. I think he missed. I don't know. Again, let me finish this point.
Zoro expected Enel to go easy on Robin because of her gender. Instead, Enel is for equality and fried that bitch up. This recontextualization is counterintuitive to everything that makes Zoro Zoro. This does not make sense.
That does not make sense.
Let's go back and revisit Zoro's short flashback together in Chapter 5, and you'll understand where I'm coming from. In Zoro's 2000th duel against Kuina, Zoro becomes frustrated at his inability to beat her despite besting grown-ups. Angered, Zoro grabs real katanas and challenges her to yet another duel, and he loses again. Defeat gets the better of Zoro and he starts crying in frustration. Seeing that Zoro is upset, Kuina chimes in. And for this section of dialogue, regardless of the translation that you use, whether it be Viz, Stephen Paul's pre-time skip translations, or any translation you'll find online, they all have the exact same meaning. There is no difference. Kuina says, "I'm the one who's frustrated. When girls get older, they become weaker than the boys. Pretty soon, you'll all be stronger than me. Zoro, you're always saying that you're going to become the world's greatest swordsman. Dad says that girls can't be master swordsmen. You're lucky you're a boy, Zoro. I want to become the world's greatest swordsman too, but I'm starting to get breasts. I wish I was a boy." Kuina is crying. She has been raised by these sexist teachings of Koshiro and brought up to believe that she could never be as good as men. By the way, Koshiro is from Wano. These sexist teachings are likely supposed to be from there, but Wano once again doesn't show an indication of this lifestyle. As Kuina is moping, Zoro gets furious, screaming out, "What are you talking about? You beat me. That's not fair. Beating you is my dream. Someday I'll beat you because I worked hard, not because you got weaker. It's got nothing to do with being a boy or a girl. I'm training all the time to beat you. You're making me look bad. Let's make a promise. Someday, one of us will become the greatest swordsman ever. We'll fight each other for the title." Zoro's actions speak out against every teaching that Koshiro has forced into Kuina's poor mind. Zoro is the one who lifts her up and tells her to forget everything she's been told. Zoro is the one who pushes her to become the best in the world. Zoro is the one who thinks that gender doesn't matter. Zoro's character motivation is his promise to Kuina. He carries around her sword in order to honor her, remember, and fulfill their dreams. Zoro even doubles down on his promise after Kuina dies and he's at her funeral. Punk Hazard is trying to change all of this. What the fuck? If you wanted to play devil's advocate for a moment, you could say that maybe there is still uncovered territory with Zoro on this front and Oda still has everything planned out. Maybe there's another flashback somewhere along the way. And I'd say, in response to that, sure, maybe that's possible. I think that you could logically write a scenario where, in an alternative timeline, Kuwena's death makes Zoro jaded and sexist with women because he's hurt and he can't forget what happened to Kuwena. That could work. But it doesn't exist. Where is it? Where and how did Zoro change from equality to inequality? Zoro was going to cut Nami down in Arlong Park because of what happened with Usopp before Sanji said that Zoro should treat women better. Zoro fucked up Miss Monday at Whiskey Peak. Zoro noticed Kiku was hiding their power and acting too girly. Like what? If this is truly something Oda was planning from the beginning, where is it? I need to know. Zoro is a nice person, but where does he draw the line between being a protector of people weaker than himself and a sexist? In the 1000 plus chapters of One Piece, where is this extremely basic character explanation? Where is the storytelling? At what point will it matter? If it didn't matter in Punk Hazard, when...
What is he fucking complaining about here? I don't understand. You're holding on to the fact, like the promise with Kuwena is perfectly intact with him carrying on the sword and wanting to become the greatest swordsman in the world for her in her name and all those things, right? Secondly, oh my lord. Secondly, the Kuwena point still freaking stands. I mean, the Tachiki point looking like Kuwena still stands. Two things can be true at once. He might think that women are weaker and need to be saved, and he's like, you are specifically bothering me because you look just like my dead friend. Thirdly, oh lordy, what Kuwena said is fucking true. They usually mature a little bit quicker than we do, but at some point we mature than them. In the 5th and 6th grade, there was a girl in my class I couldn't beat in a race. I'm fast as shit, okay? And by the time I was in the 8th grade, she couldn't fucking touch me in a race, physically in any capacity. Like, your mindset is gonna change as you grow and notice things. He was a fucking little child and boy. He probably saw it differently. As a grown-ass man, now he's like, no. Like obviously I'm gonna treat him a certain type of. I don't know. First of all, I don't agree with he felt that Eneru was going to hold back because she was a woman. He just noticed like, bro, that's a girl. He's like, I don't care. I'm aware. I'm a god. I do what I want. Like that. Don't even agree with that assessment there. But like, what I don't even know what he's complaining about. This is such a weird point that he's making. I don't understand.
All of this was being revealed and confirmed. Then will it ever be? It's not happening in Wano right now, and the story is almost over. But no. I'm not finished. After Tashiki tells Zoro that he can't be trusted, she indicates that she will be the one to take on Monet. Zoro then sits down against the wall and gives Tashiki a chance to prove herself, quietly observing. You would assume this is going somewhere, right?
Wrong!
For the full context, let's do a recap of every Tashiki moment that has led up to this point in time.
Here we go.
Tashiki starts off getting cut in half by Law, who tells her that she's too weak to decide her own fate. Law tries to finish Tashiki, but is saved by Smoker. After
Sorry, Chad, I've been neglecting you guys. My fault. Big Mom makes me look bad. Change the kid for the gender. It's literally Zoro has that much confidence in his power. I don't think he's saying the same shit to Big Mom. Zoro like Sanji, y'all listen to me. Kuwena has a point. I don't agree. She has to become weaker, but there's a difference to make up. Zoro's the biggest. Shout to Brago. Just go read some just Does he not slash money anyways? It's not sex, like it's science. Exactly. Like it's literal biology. Like men and women to me are equal in the sense that if we have 10 categories from speed, power, intuitiveness, nurturing, whatever, we have 100 skill points. They're just distributed into different areas. We have the size, the strength, the power. We cannot create life in our stomach. They can do things we can't even think about doing. They're far more intuitive, X, Y, and Z. Like, there's no problem. What's the problem here? What's the problem? Fuck. Sonic POG. I think the problem with Zoro stuff is that his stance is not made clear after Kuina's death. Listen, man, he wants to become the strongest swordsman because his friend passed away. Point blank. Period. Done. Boa smoothie exemptions to the rule. Indeed, that old hag is a monster. If you dislike Zoro's character, does that inherently make One Piece bad? I don't even know. It does. Monet isn't weak either. She's a badass, which matters. A lot of POG I don't think the inherent biological differences in real life should automatically be transferred onto a fictional setting. But she said it herself. Boys get stronger. Blah blah blah. Like it's being said there in the story. These are these false statements, Glam? Did she cap? Need more people respecting Jinbei. He's one of the best characters we have in One Piece. I love Jinbei.
Smoker is defeated. Tashigi tries to get revenge on Law, but Law humiliates her even further by swapping her body with Smoker's. Smoker hints at being limited by her body because it's not his. Then Luffy shows up, calls her weak. Tashigi expresses a desire to go after Virgo with Smoker, but Smoker sidelines her with the men. But she can't even protect her men. She gets thrown to...
And you do it, and Glam, right there, what you would have done right there is something that I don't really like that a lot of people do when I bring these generalizations up. You can't... If 50.1% of something is true, it's the majority, and everything else is an exception to the rule. Those are stand out outliers. They're not the rule. They're the exception. What's up, my yo Wolf, my guy? How you doing, brother? How you doing, man? You good? You good?
Safety because she's too slow to outrun gas, which results in her men being petrified. The G5 soldiers get attacked by a mini dragon who isn't afraid of Tashigi, but then gets scared off by Virgo. Virgo starts killing the G5 soldiers and fodderizes Tashigi. Tashigi stares on to watch the onslaught as she's crying and is then rescued by Sanji. Tashigi's dream is to collect all of the graded blades in the world that have fallen into the hands of evil men, which necessitates her becoming stronger in order to do so. Tashigi's final encounter in Punk Hazard is a battle to prove her worth and test what she's fighting for, in an arc where Tashigi has been put through the ringer by men. Her final battle is against a woman.
Who is
Naya? Who is being toyed around with by Zoro.
What are you asking?
But a chance
right
is
here,
a
bitch.
chance. Tashigi has the opportunity to progress, to do something. And what happened? Tashigi is easily defeated by Monet. Tashigi is once again not fast enough to even
She's
keep
not
up
strong,
with Monet.
nigga, damn.
I can't believe what I'm seeing. Is this for real? I can't believe it.
Bitch just weak.
Monet is about to kill her when Tashigi is once again saved by Zoro, who defeats Monet by looking at her. And then, oh my lord, Zoro grabs Tashigi like the sack of girly potatoes that she is and runs off with her because she felt faint and dizzy after her fight with Monet.
Booba's heavy drits.
Back in Alabasta, when Tashigi burst into tears at her own inability to do anything against Crocodile? She was only capable of aiding the Straw Hats to help expose the Warlord system. She herself was powerless.
Tashigi to me is an example of just because you want to be something and you work at it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to achieve that goal. I've actually always seen her in that light too. Tashigi is fucking weak and pathetic. Like that, I legitimately think that's the point. That's just me though.
Conclusion: she is walking back to the ship where Smoker is waiting for her. Smoker sees how upset she is over the situation and tells her that the only thing she can do is to get stronger. Hearing this, Tashigi screams into the sky that she will. What happened between then and now, man?
She's stronger.
Like, this is
she has
so
hockey.
bad. It's actually kind of funny.
It's not like she didn't get stronger.
And you know, it's okay for Tashigi to lose. Losing is something that can be used to build or deconstruct a character. But you will see neither of that present in Punk Hazard. Being completely honest, I can't even think of what was going through Oda's mind when he was writing these character subplots within Punk Hazard. Tashigi fails time and time again in this arc, thrown into the fire over and over again, and there is nothing to show for it except a mixed signal and the defiling of her character. As opposed to her failure in Alabasta, Tashigi in Punk Hazard has absolutely no thought to her. Nami mentally compares Tashigi to Bellemere in the sense that Nami is happy leaving the kids in the hands of a quote-unquote strong and kind female Marine. As it stands, this comparison doesn't hold any meaning outside of Nami projecting things onto Tashigi and seeing something in her that isn't reflected in the arc's writing. Nami and Tashigi do not interact. They do not have a subplot related
you know what? I'm not even
to one another to build on how Nami feels regarding Tashigi's role as a Marine. Tashigi comes out of Punk Hazard looking like a weak, helpless, pathetic woman that doesn't care about her own feelings and is more useful in looking after children. Which
I'm kind of with you. Like she is strong. She's strong to comparison to a lot of the universe. And strength. The strength only come in physical might.
Get back in the kitchen.
Great scene, by the way. A scene that I agree with.
Nami herself is barely involved in the children plotline or the arc in general outside of being an escort. She has no shining moment other than her initial stance where she said she couldn't deny
you're right for that
children's
clip.
plea for help. And Nami's apparent weakness for children is also something that stands on weak grounds and seems to have sprung up out of the blue from the post-time skip. Outside of Nami being a girl and a nice person and the fact that girls like children normally, there's not much here. But there could have been, given the potential that there was for Tashigi. Had Nami been better written in this child plotline, Oda could have given himself room to make this work. If there was a child that had a bond with Nami and Oda incorporated moments to remind us of Nami's past, that would be ideal. In similar fashion to how I proposed that Fisherman Island could have been an arc to have made a lot more use of Nami, I suggest the same here. Monet, in theory, represents the exact opposite of what Bellemere was. Instead of being a caring, strong mother, Monet is literally a manipulative pirate harpy grooming children to be experimented on. She also has snow powers, and Nami had a scene with Monet where her heat climb attack countered Monet's abilities. Seemed like that could have made for an interesting fight, could it not? Tashigi and Nami could have even been involved in the same child plotline with Chopper that results into the defeat of Monet and them bonding together, which then leads to the end result of Nami appreciating Tashigi as being a strong, caring, and loving female Marine. And it all would have led back to Zoro's character and to build on things in the future. Instead, none of that happened, and we were gifted with the worst part of Punk Hazard easily. Everything here as it pertains to Nami is surface level, and everything as it pertains to Zoro and Tashigi is trash. I don't like using that word much. Trash is a very, very harsh word, but this is garbage. But the act is starting to wrap up, so let's continue on with the play-by-play, folks. Luffy, by this point, has been introduced to Momonosuke, a character who is even more extreme in his pride than Kinemon is due to his childish nature. He helps Luffy get out of the garbage due to his dragon abilities, and history will go to support this, but Oda does start a good foundation for the
is it reliable? I thought it was relatable, I'm sorry.
On Chopper's side, Mocha has eaten all of the candies to prevent the enraged children from doing so.
Trash is not a harsh
word. As a result, she starts coughing up blood,
it's lost its
which
meaning.
Makes the kids confused long
trash
enough for them to be
like
sedated, and then Chopper also patches Mocha up off screen.
It's got no weight.
Chopper's motivations at this point switch from personally wanting to defeat Caesar to saying that Luffy will beat him up. To tag along the conclusion of this lackluster subpoint, Brownbeard shows up in the lab and starts talking about Caesar to Twitch chat. And then they shoot Brownbeard full of bullets like they did 50.
Yo, get me across the street. Let me go. Let's go. Let's go.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
I mean, they just riddle him full of holes, man.
Where's
but
that
he's still alive and kicking.
Blood in my
just like
dog
50.
and I can't see. I'm just trying to be what I'm destined to be.
These guys
and
must be using
trying to take my life
non-flashback guns because, as we know, people are only allowed to die from guns in One Piece if it's in a
Wolf, my
flashback.
gold. I appreciate the sub, man. Thank you, Sarah.
Luffy shows up at the end of the
I've been
shooting.
I've been
patting
super
Brownbeard
consistent
on the
daily
head
too,
as
so
he
you know what I'm
walks
saying.
by.
I'm out here, man.
And Caesar starts
grind.
giving another long
Thank you guys for
speech
400
about
followers,
sad,
by the way. I hit
smile,
400
Dofi,
today.
and
That's-
this, that, and
that's
the
really
other.
incredible.
Luffy punches him and continues to smack him
I'm
around
gonna
as Caesar
do the channel
continues
points
to
thing
babble
soon,
on.
I swear.
The scene transitions to Virgo beating Smoker up and breaking his jute. Virgo is confused as to why Smoker is fighting the way that he is because it's not the smart thing to do against someone like Virgo. What Smoker was doing ended up being a part of his plan though, because his smoke enables him to steal back Law's heart, which fulfills his debt to a pirate. I wish there was a bit of an extension in this fight between Smoker and Virgo, because this is the only time we see Smoker in the post-time skip, and considering all the other things going on in Punk Hazard that aren't as entertaining, there was definitely more time to dedicate to showing off Smoker's abilities and character. But this fight still ends up being fairly entertaining. Law gets up and gives a great speech about how the world is going to change and proceeds to one-shot Virgo through his full body hardening. The moral of the story here is that Law tells Dofi his undoing will be the fact that he underestimated Law's growth. And the counter to this is that Virgo tells Law that his undoing will be the fact that he doesn't know Dofi's past. This sets up a couple of things heading into Dressrosa. Alongside the epilogue, Law and Smoker vs. Virgo is definitely the highlight of the arc, and they kinda steal the show. Law cutting the mountain is a big flex and creates hype around Law's ability as a fighter in preparation for the inevitable Dofi encounter. Law also leaves Virgo to die here, in theory. He cut up his entire body and made it so that Virgo can't move on his own. It's still a matter of debate on if Virgo is still dead, but since that hasn't been confirmed or denied, I won't comment on its quality. As of now, it's satisfying. By chapter 691, the Caesar fight is starting to wrap up.
Channel
Luffy
points are
goes
useless
from
unless you
beating
got a
up Caesar
soundboard
to
willing to
stopping
dance
his
for a
attack
number of
on
channel
Caesar
points. I'm
altogether
not dancing.
before he defeats them.
I'll figure something out.
And Luffy is just kind of
Betting
chilling
or
by
something, I
Blackbeard.
don't know.
It's hinted that this ceasefire and attacking is caused by
Not
Law
just his
cutting the
fruit
mountain in
smoker
half,
isn't
which is an
physically
oddity,
all
but
that.
I think the
don't
main
see the
reason for this,
versatility aside
however,
from making
is
small
for Oda
space
to
and
make
shit.
Caesar
Don't
go
forget
out
Lucky
in a
Reel
big
was the first
hurrah,
one to catch a body.
rather
Go.
than simply being
Full
pummeled
body
with
hockey. Full body hockey is
The
so mid.
ceasefire leads
There's
to
some stuff
Caesar
you could do
giving
with the
some more
fruit
orders,
Damien.
going
Full
on
body
yet
hockey
another
overrated.
speech, and then Oda pulls the same cheap and cringy tactic I've had.
It comes across to me that like full body hockey, it's almost like it does generally protect you everywhere, but it's like a thin veil. Whereas if you can focus and concentrate it into one area specifically, it does a lot more for you.
Having the guards cry,
But
and
that would
pretend
require
Caesar's just
a
playing the
higher
game.
level of,
Caesar merges with
prediction.
Shi no
No,
Kuni
not.
and then gives yet another speech. Afterwards, he petrifies some of the guards, which gets Luffy mad, and Luffy runs back into the hall to prepare to get a running start at Caesar. Usopp gives a speech that is probably too good to be placed alongside Luffy beating Caesar, but it's still a good speech. Luffy begins his sprint at Caesar, who doesn't respond or attack in any way, even though he transformed into his final form to deal with Luffy. Alright.
This is consistent with what we learned to later on understand that he's pretty much not complete non-combatant and a fighter. He's fucking scared. He's like, bro.
Right. Caesar has a run-of-the-mill, how about you join me, last words, and then he gets Grizzly Magnum into the mine shaft. Not sure what all this was about. Kind of feels like an extension of something that didn't need to be extended whatsoever. Before Dofi physically shows up on Punk Hazard, the best part of Operation Escape from the Lab is Dofi saying goodbye to his family, and that of being Virgo and Monet. I think this section says a lot about the dynamic between Dofi and his crew and what they are all willing to sacrifice in order to accomplish Dofi's dream. Monet was already thinking of blowing everything up. That's family. But before she can blow things up, she gets memed. Caesar Clown stabs her Logia heart with no signs of using hockey, believing it to have been Smoker's heart, and Monet blacks out as a response, being unable to blow up the lab. Dofi, knowing that things didn't blow up, realizes that something went wrong, and he promptly leaves.
Can I tell you guys a quick story? I was in class when this nigga was running on air coming to Punk Hazard. I was in a college class, and I left. I was too hyped. I said, I can't be here. I'm too hyped off the One Piece. And I cut. I went home. I walked back to my house. I went home. I was so hyped, bruh.
Dressrosa to make his way over to Punk Hazard. which brings us into the epilogue of the arc. The epilogue gives us the completion of...
And by the way, family. Hey, we got family. Shout out to, I don't even know that nigga's name, but Fast and the Furious.
Subplots, which
Vin
end up
Diesel.
being questionable at best
Vin
in
Diesel?
quality.
Yeah, Vin Diesel.
Kittymon's petrified corpse breaks open after it's dropped, showing that he's okay and apparently not poisoned either.
Dominic
I
Toretto,
thought
my
that
bad.
the
I thought
entire
it was-
point
I
of
thought it was Vin
Shinokuni
Diesel,
was
my
that it
fault.
combined itself with the poisonous gas to petrify its victims so that the poison could do its work better. I guess Kinnymon wasn't in it long enough? Question mark. Brownbeard gets absolutely hoed here, by the way. His crew is being arrested and taken to the world government, being cured, hopefully, and then sent to jail. Alright, this is kind of a somber fate, but no one cares because it's Brownbeard. At any rate, this sequence serves as a plot device to undo the marine deaths in the arc because Smoker's group will go back into the island to retrieve the petrified, apparently not poisoned to death statues of the Marines so they can continue on about their day. Law, as it turns out, is the one
Vin
who
Diesel?
does the
It's
primary
Vin.
doctoring when it comes to the children. With his
I'm
devil
sure
fruit
Clowns was
ability and
kidding,
knowledge,
though,
he is able to
right?
take out the drugs inside of the kids' bodies to a satisfying degree. Meaning that Chopper's utility as a doctor within this arc results in his inability to fix the
They needed
children
an Uber?
who have to be taken away by the Marines for complete care. As I mentioned in the character James portion, the kid plotline poorly utilizes Chopper's character, his skills, and doesn't serve to further his character in any way, making it a disappointment and kind of pointless that the child plotline even happened to begin with. Momonosuke and Kinemon reunite and have a tearful reunion. Throughout Punk Hazard and moving into the future, there is the idea placed out there that Kinemon and Momo are very close to each other. There is a fabricated father and son dynamic that feels genuine. The worry that Kinemon has for Momonosuke and the mentoring he does seems to imply a sort of past that they share and a kinship. Kinemon is the one who is able to make Momonosuke forget his pride, something which he learned from Sanji, and this allows Momo to eat and celebrate the fact that they are still alive, which is a foreshadowing to
Sanji
the events
used
of
that.
Wano.
Hey,
Can't wait
hey,
to see where
mention
that
him with
goes.
Sanji using that revitalizing
At the moment,
cooking.
the meal that
Yeah,
Kinemon and Momonosuke
99
partake in
vital
is made from Sanji.
recipes.
This meal
New
is the
Kama
first and
Karate,
only time
Skirar.
where Sanji uses his new Kama recipes.
Get nice and strong.
The concept of attack cooking was introduced in chapter 595 of the pre-time skip by Ivankov as being the specialty of the Okamas from Kamabaka Kingdom. Ivankov claims that attack cooking can change your body,
I was
personality,
kidding.
and other aspects
Wait,
of your appearance.
what were we talking
A
about?
fact
Smoker's
which
fruit? You said he
intrigued
didn't like
Sanji
it.
because he never even thought that food could do something like that. From a writing perspective, this is a unique and good idea from Oda. Much like Chopper's abilities, Sanji's cooking prowess always seemed like it was maxed out because there wasn't a weakness or a need for him to up his game up. But the introduction of attack cooking opened up pathways in order to expand Sanji's skill in a way that could legitimately change the bodies of his friends and other people. This possibility is one of the primary reasons Sanji wanted to learn the recipes, by the way. He was interested in the idea of helping nurture and grow the Straw Hats. This is why he stayed and trained
It
on
is
the
a
island
it is
instead of
a,
going
it
to
is
Luffy.
it is a
There
weird
are
omission.
99
That
recipes, which is
he's
way too
never
much
used
to
any other ones. I've
realistically
always
show
found
in
that
a
to be
story.
strange. I don't know why.
But in
what the reason
principle,
was.
it gives a lot of room for Oda.
It just
to be
seems like a
creative.
scrapped idea, I
When
guess. At the
Oda
end of the day, he
introduced
still
one
got
recipe
stronger
Sanji
from the
Hazard,
time skip, which
it
was
shows that
far
Sanji
more
learned
important
some
to me.
techniques.
So I
It
never really
rejuvenates his
harped on the
spirit,
point.
and
But if you
even
cared
comments
about
on
this
how
and
much
you're
it makes
upset
you feel
about it,
better.
I think that's valid.
You would assume then that Oda had plans for this to be relevant in the future, especially say, I don't know, in an arc where Sanji's cooking becomes more relevant.
Wrong!
Nah, not so much. It is truly unfortunate that Oda doesn't do anything with attack cooking. Could you imagine a scenario in which Sanji's cooking is what makes some of this crew stronger or even more beautiful over the course of time? Like, here's a hypothetical for you, and this is purely a hypothetical, obviously. Has nothing to do with what I'll talk about in the future. But, you know, for the sake of discussion, let's say that Luffy has a fight somewhere in the future, and Oda decides to change Luffy's physical design to be more muscular and befitting of his strength. I know that this would, never happen, right? But what if Sanji was a contributing factor into why this happened instead of it being for literally no reason at all?
This hypothetical is not moving me,
to the
but
rest
I
of
hear
the
you.
crew.
Your point's
As
taken,
the
but I
story
don't.
starts reaching its
Okay.
end game,
Oh,
people start
the
to develop
wagon?
physically. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, we slapped the wagon.
And if Attack Cooking shows up again, leads me to ask the question that I will continue to ask as we go throughout the post-time skip. How many things has Oda started and then changed from its original conception?
Oh, he's using the special. Hot damn. Theory just for a reason. Nami's boobs got bigger. That story was for a reason. The wagon. I swear I don't know if I ever met someone's bitch is more of a not having ass. They got titties, but they don't have the wagon in the bike.
Back to the story, though. Law informs Smoker that they are heading to Dressrosa, and we get to see what happened during his discussion.
All right, guys, we're in the
Luffy.
home stretch. We're almost
Following
done
this
because
conversation, which was
I'm
a solid
tired,
conversation,
bro.
there is one of the cringiest moments in the series.
I want to eat and edit this one video I have to put up tomorrow and call it a night.
But thankfully, it doesn't really matter. You could skip over this section and pretend it doesn't exist because it doesn't have much bearing on the quality of the arc. It's just really bad.
I'll never forget the Japanese. Shout out to
Dofi
Joseph
finds
Joestar,
the
my
heads
goat.
of Baby 5 and Buffalo floating in the ocean some distance away from Punk Hazard. On board the little boat, Dofi has a conversation with Law where Law reveals that Dofi's business partner is Kaido, a man who would destroy Dofi if business ever stopped. Using this as leverage, Law demands Dofi resign from the Warlords and cheekily hangs up before Dofi can say anything. And Dofi is pissed, and I would be too if I were him. He shows up at Punk Hazard after the Straw Hats have already left. Displaying the exaggerated swagger of a young flamingo, Dofi isn't in the mood for games and starts smacking Smoker around like a rag doll. And thus starts the most iconic moment of Punk Hazard. Aokiji shows up and saves Smoker, which forces Dofi to retreat. The conversation between Smoker and Aokiji is great. It reveals some interesting motives from Aokiji, who now has connections to the black market, and as we'll learn later, with Blackbeard as well. Aokiji came specifically to Punk Hazard in order to contact Smoker so that he could talk to Akainu and have him mobilize the admirals. Smoker? Talk to Akainu? That would be a very
actual yams or
interesting
metaphorical
conversation,
yams?
given the clashing personalities of these two people.
Booty more important
and
than
who
water.
they're friends with.
Drink your water, though.
Smoker is friends with Aokiji, after all.
Drink your
and
fucking
Aokiji
water.
lost to
Niggas do
Akainu.
not be drinking water. Put that
I'm
pop
sure
down.
that Oda will definitely
Put
show
that
this
juice down.
conversation.
Drink some H2O, nigga.
Aokiji leaves right after this, and things transition back over to the Straw Hats, who are on their way to Dressrosa.
Man's like
the Straw Hats
Kuzan?
are
Yes,
getting
sir.
from Punk Hazard to Dressrosa through the guidance of Law and aren't using the log pose. Everyone is kind of doing their...
I feel like me and Dritz are gonna be like in unison for Dressrosa. I don't even know in my mind how much he likes or hates the arc, but I am. Dressrosa is my least favorite arc, so we'll see.
Their own thing aboard the ship. Kinemon is attacking Zoro because he is furious that Zoro has Shusui. This anger shortly subsides as discussion of food comes up, but people notice that Momonosuke is missing. Nami reveals that Momonosuke is taking a bath with Robin. When people talk about this moment, the focus is usually on fans being jealous or somewhat spiteful of Momonosuke for getting the fan service with the girls. And I wouldn't say that's an unfounded feeling, especially given what's happening later on in the story. But no one ever talks about how out of character the situation is when it comes to
fan
Robin.
service.
This is the first
Is
of
he? I don't know if he's spitting because, like, I would argue that a lot of characters are shirtless or have their chest open all the goddamn time. Even my friends, even my female friends who read that comment on that, like Smoker be walking with his whole chest out. I disagree with that.
Couple instances.
It's just not. It just doesn't get that
happens.
level of like the male gaze. I don't know. I don't even know. I'm tired, man. Fuck it. Who cares?
Wano, where Robin starts acting really motherly. I stated before that it wasn't written well for Nami to care as much as she did about Chojin, which is later on continued with Momonosuke alongside Robin, but there was at least an attempt from Oda to shoehorn that idea in.
Where the dudes in the shower? Well, yeah, you ain't see the...
This attempt doesn't even exist for Robin. And once again
What's that
relies
movie
on
where they're
Robin
on the
being a
thing? I don't
woman
even remember
and
what
for
movie
the
it was.
biological
They're on the
nature
bathtub.
of women to like
I
kids.
don't know, man. It's whatever.
Robin doesn't come off as your average woman, though. She's into dark humor, odd things, history, and is much more of a recluse by nature.
Movies don't count.
Outside of the fact that Robin likes
This is not
Chopper
important
and
to
likes
me. I don't care.
Chopper,
I'm not moved by
there's
this point.
really
I don't care if there's no male
connection
fan
here
service.
between
Nigga.
her fawning over children.
I'm unmoved.
Nami, by comparison, is usually portrayed as an empathetic character who tends to have more character interactions and relationships.
I'm trying to see more female fan service. Let's get it.
An excuse for this behavior, and I can think of one that would be plausible. Example: Robin grew up always wanting to meet her mother and hold hands with her and go for a walk.
This ain't a Golden Kamui. You thought it was Golden Kamui? We thick with the cheeks out in the fucking bath? Are you guys who you think it was?
That she ended up getting in Olvia's final moments. This childhood of Robin could serve as a foundation for Robin to
subscribe with Prime.
Other children whose mothers weren't in their lives. And perhaps Robin develops a habit of holding onto the hands of children because that's what she always wanted as a kid. That's believable given Robin's backstory.
I'm almost done, bro.
But this importance doesn't exist in the actual story. Left. And you'll understand how odd this is as we move forward. The final bit of Punk Hazard is the newspaper confirming that Dofi has indeed left the Warlords and the reveal of the Supernova alliances. All of which are good things and serve as a positive note to end the arc off.
Amazon Lily had Luffy with his dick out.
This is the second arc in a row where there is an antagonistic duo.
But
the roles and importance of that duo is reversed. Hody is the main villain of Fishman Island, and he is supposed to be a serious character. And Vanderdecken is the side villain, who is a meme character. In Punk Hazard, the main villain is Caesar Clown, who is the meme
Luffy
character,
is sexy, hold on.
While Virgo is the side villain, who is a serious character. Caesar's speeches, in a similar fashion to Hody, are tedious and overdone. He doesn't have any interesting character dynamics to speak of, and the main subplot around Caesar ends up being his connection to Brownbeard and the manipulation of his crew and subordinates, which is one of the weakest aspects of the entire arc. Caesar is surprisingly liked within the community, and I would say that this is due to, in large part,
all I got are these three. I'm gonna get some more.
The anime has made Caesar's laugh iconic, where if you are a manga reader, laughs don't really transfer all that well without voice acting. So if you separate that aspect,
I disagree.
You are left with, well,
I think Gintama is funnier to read than to watch.
Caesar really is. Caesar is the archetypical mad scientist who likes creating things to hurt people and has funny facial expressions. Caesar is an underwhelming villain, but he is more manageable in tandem with Virgo than Vanderdecken was with Hody. This is in part due to the fact that Punk Hazard has no central theme that it's trying to command. Generally speaking, the more effort that is placed into making something serious, the more important the failure is. Caesar would have come off better if there was either more of an attempt from Oda to connect the things I've already alluded to with Chopper, Nami, Monet, and all of that, or if Caesar just had less screen time and less speeches.
Keep up the hustle. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm out here. I'm doing my best. Here's a montage story.
Oh, the music. No, you're not. No. No! Come on, no way! No, come on, man, they're playing the music.
Why you do Roger like this, man? Why you do Roger like that?
Oh, man. Oh, man, with the music.
Is he watching Naruto? No, Roger. Roger, no. Roger. Roger. Hey, Roger, run me my check, man. This boy is dead, man.
No! 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 Ah! What a worthless story.
You take away Brown.
Wow!
Beard, the soldiers, and make it so that the final fight with Caesar actually has a point whenever he goes into Shinokuni mode.
Is this gonna be on YouTube Watch channel? The channel Saves My Life at Work? Yes, I'm gonna upload them all tonight, I promise. Just give me some time.
This is the second arc in a row where the Straw Hats have not been properly
tested. I'll upload both of them and the response to Dr.
And the
Bonehead.
subplots don't go in any positive direction for the characters themselves. I would go as far as to say that Zoro and Tashiki's characters were virtually assassinated.
No, they weren't.
They were the worst that they've ever been in Punk Hazard, and were irreparably damaged as a result.
This point, we don't see eye on eye. And I don't care about Tashiki enough to even fight him on that, but Zoro's fine.
Whose overall impact on the story is maybe negligible.
Yeah, I'll talk about it for sure.
Oda messed up the writing with Zoro, a main character, than he did by not doing a whole lot right with Caesar Clown. When you attack and screw up the writing of the most important people, the impact of that is grand. The children plotline that partially includes Nami and Chopper doesn't amount to much at all, despite the time being wasted on it. Brook, Robin, and Chopper don't do anything. Frankie at least gets some time to show off General Frankie, so there's that. That's a positive. Sanji's subplot with Kinemon is okay at best, but has questionable execution due to what Oda does with everything else Sanji-related in the arc,
was barely in the series.
and the fact that this subplot doesn't translate into anything for the rest of the story. It just seems to have happened and then dropped immediately.
I'm not even done. After this, I still gotta edit and upload some stuff.
Not every character in every arc needs to have a grand moment or a character.
Remember, I jog at 5 a.m.
If every arc tried to incorporate this, then every arc would be significantly longer. We've talked about that. Oftentimes, it will be the case that characters in different arcs kind of swap places for who gets the most shine. However, the lack of quality that the focused characters get shines a light upon those who didn't do anything at all. So when you fail on one front, you tend to fail on another. If
I'm not done yet, but Jiraiya is still the best ninja in the series and only just
put in the bare minimum, then over time it will create a negative aspect to their usage rate as main characters.
He is. I can't
Punk
be in a
Hazard
Twitch
is an
live
arc
team.
where outside of Law, Virgo, and Smoker, the rest of the story
I appreciate you coming through though, really. Honestly, I see you on YouTube more often. Yeah.
Fails.
Don't worry, I'm gonna
My
upload
reread of Punk Hazard left me questioning if it was worse than Fishman Island, because Punk Hazard helped take down what was great about its long-running characters. This isn't to mention that the pacing of Punk Hazard is awful, and pacing is something that Oda, for the life of him, cannot seem to figure out in the slightest, no matter how many chances he gets.
He has arcs with great pacing, bad pacing, and up and down pacing. It's true. It's true.
Oda cannot balance these subplots, the main plot, the world building, and the character interaction over the long periods of time.
I don't think he showered in 3 decades.
He does a significantly better job in Zoe.
Also, he's a Rex
Zoe
fan.
is also a significantly shorter
like Rex.
arc. A correlation.
7-hour VOD. No, it'll
pacing is something that is easy to understand, but
it'll be
hard to
2
master.
separate ones.
It's a very
it'll be three will be going up
tool.
Actually.
How an author controls the tempo of his story.
Somebody
can be
do the thing.
factor
Do the
in
archive
whether or not
channel.
You,
Do the
the
thing.
reader, even like what's going on.
Follow it so I can monetize
Pacing
it one day.
mismanagement can lead to events being off-screened. It can mean that things go by too fast or too slow. As the audience, maybe you would have liked to have seen some other things fleshed out with people that you care about instead of seeing more of some nameless henchmen.
I watch One Piece
There
a
is
lot.
a science to this. And in the science, the more characters
Also
you
follow
have,
me
the
on
harder
YouTube.
it becomes to get to the solution. And like I mentioned earlier, pacing can exaggerate writing issues. It's sort of like writing an essay. And for anyone that's been a student before, I'm sure you can relate to the example I'm about to give. Have you ever been assigned a paper that you didn't want to write, but that paper had a page requirement? And when you are writing this paper, you tend to just fill up as many lines as humanly possible with the most irrelevant, repetitive jargon you can think of, so that by the time that you actually say the one thing that you have that's important for the paper, you're basically done. Now, the point that you may end up saying might be phenomenal, but since it's covered...
Well, I want to do it. We can literally do it tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow. I want to talk about... tomorrow, I plan on talking about the DC stuff. Let's do it tomorrow.
...in a whole bunch of shit, it doesn't really stand out too much. That's pacing, that is structure, and it's very important for telling a story. This all relates back to the concepts of the 3 P's in execution that we talked about way back when. When we're looking at Punk Hazard and we ask ourselves, are the subplots handled well? Are they engaging? Does the writing make sense with the established continuity of the story? Does it feel satisfying to read? Did the author make good use of their time?
Efficiency is the problem.
Do well versus what it did
I do think he could be more efficient from the field. I think he could shoot 50%. He's shooting 45.
In basically every arc. And if you try to use these on Fishman Island and Punk Hazard, you'll come to find
4 more minutes.
The things that you are getting that are good is far and few, while the things that are bad are much more present. Punk Hazard is 46 chapters in length. And if you combine that with Fishman Island's 51 chapters and Saba Odi's 5 chapters, together we have a little over 100 chapters of material for the post-time skip. And I would make the case that Oda
the Batman movie is the thing I'm looking forward to the most. Fair. I think I like Gotham Knights. It's looking good, and I'm a pretty big fan of the Court of the Owls. It's one of the few things the New 52 did right.
We've seen subplots basically skipped over or lead to nothing.
Court of the Owls.
There is a huge lack of emphasis on the main characters of the story, and much more on the arc-specific characters. This is all coming off of a time skip which created greater expectations and desires for there to be more focus on the main characters.
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
Oda seems to land the introduction and epilogue portions of these arcs by introducing lore dumps, character reveals, and adventure, but he struggles at delivering on the arcs themselves. There are a few standout moments, but they don't fix the issues. Overall, you leave with more things that stand out as problems or missed opportunities than you do on things that feel like they really delivered. And this is only the beginning. Fishman Island and Punk Hazard serve as the entry points into the time skip, and in total, that is only a third of its entire content. We have a lot more to cover. We got 4 more arcs, which each increase in scale and length. The arc which follows Punk Hazard, Dressrosa, is even longer than Fishman Island and Punk Hazard put together.
I wish he added the soundbite from when Sonic is like, "Oh man, like you missed opportunity on your ass, nigga." Yeah, how you like that?
It's something that we're going to have to wait to handle.
Lots of running.
This video has gone on for a long time, and I think that this is a good place to stop. I've given you my generic rundown for my beliefs on One Piece, and I provided you 3 arcs of analysis to try and explain my thought process on how I break things down. I can imagine that there are already going to be divisive opinions regarding the things that I've said, and I expect and welcome the conversation. I hope that this video has met the expectations of the people that have been waiting for years. I'm sorry that I couldn't get it to you sooner. And I hope that people old and new stay along for future editions. The job isn't finished yet. The more that I break things down in future arcs...
Okay. Thank you. That's enough out of you, Mr. Duritsu-kun. Alright. So what do I want to say about the video? It's a good video. It's a good video. I really think the presentation, the time and effort, and the things he researched, it's great. Well presented, all of that. I do like the video. I pretty much got exactly what I expected. There were things that I agreed with, things I disagreed with. What percentage of things would you say I agreed with? Like, probably about 30, 35, like a split like that. And then the rest I disagreed with. He has a lot of good points. He did bring up things that I never really thought about. The time limit thing per arc is just not something that I ever really even thought about myself. So that was a cool thing to realize. And truth be told, I don't really think that he was like overly malicious or like attacky to the point where like even if you were the biggest One Piece stan, I think you should be able to take this and be like, yeah, I disagree, and just move on with your day. Like it's just one man's opinion. It's really not that deep, but I think it was well done. I really do. I want to have some conversation about it. I think what I'm gonna do in the future, sooner rather than later, is for people who have watched the video in total in its entirety, Dritch included. Obviously, you made it. I want to have a discussion about some of the stuff he made, some of the points I didn't agree with. I definitely want to talk about the Monet thing. I want to tell him that Sanji fan service stuff is not a big deal. I disagree with him with the Luffy dream portion. I agree with most of the stuff he said about Zoro. The Usopp stuff wasn't a big deal to me. There was something else I thought that was dumb. The Tashigi stuff. Like there's certain things there that I just thought were like not even a big deal at all. Like it's just a weird thing to just harp on. But all in all, the man put the work in. Great video. I wish he could eat off of it, but there's probably way too much copyright stuff in that anyway. So I know how it feels because even my last video is demonetized because there's too much cussing. But anywho, you're not supposed to use that word on Twitch, dog. You said like 7 times this stream. What? Oh yeah, you're not supposed to use that on Twitch. Yeah, my fault. But yeah, I said beta. I used beta. Yeah, but yeah, the Oda picture got obnoxious. Do the math. Banger stream helped me see Dritch points. I don't feel bad for disliking it without watching it. Better get an invite. He intentionally didn't monetize it either. Make a point. Don't say the name of the Twitch staff. But all right, though. It's really good. Really good. I still got to edit some videos and I have to upload the VODs on my archive channel. Thank you guys for coming through and watching. Each video was well today. We had a lot. We had a stream day today. First part, response to Dr. Bullhead for Tower of God. I worked out, came back, and we finished the Dritch video before one. I thought I would be watching this past one, but all right. Do we get paid for this? No, pay me. I want to get paid for this. Y'all have yourselves a mighty fine day. I'm going to be out. We'll be back tomorrow with some DC fans dumb stuff. Yeah.